I'll eat your ass. I will. That's why I want the globe to know. I will eat your ass first. I will eat your ass. Gah! Gah!
I don't give a tuppeny fuck about your moral conundrum, you meat-headed shitsack.
For the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
What did you do?
I didn't do fucking shit.
You want a raw tough guy? Then take it raw!
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
You already a whore. Why not make some money at it?
Here at AF, we work hard to make sure we've got the facts to back up every accusation of chuddery, that we're entertaining every time we spotlight some fascistic fuck, film fandom flimflamer, culture vulture, Star Wars swindler, or comics conman. And by we, I mean me. And while I'm certainly not doing it for money, I do need to buy a new PC soon for continued editing and streaming. That's why I want to express my deep gratitude for my support on Patreon, from dopest members like William, Michael, and Smirking Gun. That's not to say that the members at the chillest and basest tiers are any less appreciated. But even if you can't swing it, you can follow me for free on Patreon and still get some exclusive content and opportunities to chat directly with me. YouTube makes us give every ounce of ourselves. Sometimes it feels like we're being milked dry. Support at any level is hits.
You all know exactly who I am.
Now,
Say my name.
The other one, no organized chaos.
Everywhere I go, I see his face.
I vaguely know who actual fandom is.
Actual fandom?
Okay, you the big bad booty daddy.
Goddamn right.
Here's the thing. Okay?
Oh, somebody please think of the children.
The only way that you can really stop this kind of thing is to arouse public opinion. It's very upsetting. It has a bad moral effect.
Forced adversity.
Ask yourself, what's more terrifying? Fear or the frightened?
The facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire.
Bad, B-A-D-D, bothered about Dungeons and Dragons.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Socialism has spread the shadow of human regimentation over most of the nations of the earth.
And they're pushing identity politics with this. They 100% are.
How do you think homosexuals reveal themselves?
And the shadow is encroaching upon our own liberty.
I think there ought to be a law against them. Tonight I'm going to show you why.
Is he okay? Somebody better check on him. Yeah, we X-Fapping today, guys. We are X-Fapping. Welcome to Forced Diversity Podcast. Nobody's favorite stream on this channel, apparently, because we get too fucking real. So the numbers aren't as high as maybe some of the chud specific stuff. But look, we're doing a chud today. We're fapping a chud that like is, you know, he's kind of like he's really not been fapped enough. He's it's kind of upsetting that more people aren't aware of just how insidious this fucking guy is. And of course, we're talking about Dr. Stasis of Orcus. But also, we are talking about Chris Rufo. And, you know, look, who better to talk about X-Men than an X-Man? So, Morgan.
Hey, what's going on?
What up?
So I noticed something about the intro.
Uh-huh.
And somehow this thought hasn't occurred to me in a year of doing this with you. When the guy is talking about socialism and the shadow is spreading over the globe, whose shadow is it that's actually spreading over the globe in that
it's
his hand, right?
Yes.
It's his. Oh, whose shadow is spreading? Oh, it's fucking yours, you asswipe.
I think I remember when I was first editing that, noticing it and just thinking, oh, that's kind of funny. And then like it just escaped me until now again. Like, but as soon as you started saying it, I was like, oh yeah.
And you know what? I noticing that today, it's a good day to notice it, talking about this motherfucker, Dr. Stasis.
Why is he specifically like somebody that is problematic in that regard, or
I feel like when he's worried about spreading people's shadows, he's a big doo-doo head liar.
Yeah, I think so.
And doing that shifting blame, like his you know, whatever number our Earth is counterpart, one Christopher motherfucking Rufo.
Well, look, we can't rag on the guy too hard because he was kind enough to be in the New York Times today.
He did make the New York Times today. Let me.
So I guess he just wanted to help us out, maybe.
We'll see, you know, he's a big fan of the show. big fan of the pod. Here, we'll pop this bad boy up. Let me just do the screen share.
So the jingle was actually done by a guy named he goes by Intellectual Darkwave, and I actually should promote him more often because he makes some good music. I imagine he's still making music. Let me check. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he did that for me, and then I've also got my actual fandom music that is specifically Blade Runner inspired. I asked for something Blade Runner inspired. He did that. I haven't used that much lately. But then also I have another song that he did at a request from me. It's the Bad Boys cover that I used in my Punisher Police Problem videos.
There you go.
Let me look him up real quick, and then we can, you know, check it out, and then move on to the show, because we fapping a big one. It's a big one.
It's a big one.
This guy, like, you know, if you ask most people, hey, okay, most people who aren't fucking insane cult conservatives, what's ruining the country right now? A lot of people probably be like Trump and Trump's cult, and you know, a lot of other people, reasonably so, rightfully so, would say, oh, the Senate, you know, things like that. It's like true,
Supreme Court,
all that. Oh yeah, absolutely, all those are true. But this guy, I don't know that the long-term damage that he's doing, the foundation that he has been laying for all of these other people to do the damage they're doing, I think is absolutely necessary to the entire propaganda campaign.
Right.
And that's why we're going to not just look at Dr. Stasis a little bit. We're going to look at Orcus and how, you know, these things are. Look, there's a reason that Orcus is Orcus in the comics right now. And we're going to look at that. Let's see. Oh my God, he just had a song pop up right as I went to his channel. So this is Intellectual Darkwave, and I will drop his link in the chat.
Nice.
He's got songs about, you know, he's got 12 rules.
Oh my God.
There's Power in a Union, Joe Chillwave, you know. I don't know what some of these are. I haven't listened to them yet. But you know, he did a Solidarity Forever. I actually did some vocalization on that.
Nice, that's rad.
This is Rev Team, which was the original version of what is the Initiative now, actually. He was one of the first ones on board with the Rev Team, which is not my favorite name, but it was a vote. It was a democracy, and that's what we came away with. So, and And then it all went to crap because, hey, surprise, the online left just loves to be dramatic and get into bullshit and not really doing much organizing.
We're going to talk about that at the end of the show and make some people upset-a-row.
Oh, so you're going to make folks mad. Okay.
I'm going to make folks mad, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's got some. Oh, this one was really good. Cigars, the Rush Limbaugh, Dennis Prager song.
You know what? I would like to help. You know what? I hope one day soon, very soon, I hope that Dennis Prager and Rush Limbaugh can be reunited.
Yeah, they were buddies, I think.
And I would like them to join together in committing the rest of their existence to being gender neutral bathrooms.
Yeah. All right, so I've got Intellectual Darkwave's channel link in the chat. You should go sub to him. I'll pull a song and we can end after Morgan pisses everybody off. I'll pull a nice chill synthwave song that's also funny, and we'll listen to that on the way out the door later. But hey guys, we got shit to get to. We gotta do some bub talk.
We gotta talk some bub. It is the year of the bub.
It is the year of bub, and yeah, I haven't forgotten. I know that if you follow my Patreon and you watch my first Patreon update, I did not get a video out that week as I planned to do. Because ice storm, like several days of snow hit here, and there was like a couple of days when I just left my PC off because I was like power was flickering on and off and shit. And just generally kind of got hit with some, not like super hardcore, but a little bit of creeping depression symptoms, which is
is no fun and no good.
Not a good feeling, considering I haven't really had it since I had a severe depression in 2020, and then I got transcranial magnetic stimulation, which knocked that shit right the fuck out, and I haven't had any symptoms since then. So I was really hoping that I was just free of it forever, because that is something that happens with a certain percentage of people that get that treatment.
Right.
But seems to not be the case. However, I haven't continued having the same degree of symptoms, so I think maybe there's some still effect that is preventing it from getting any worse, and that's
helpful.
Goodness.
Yeah, because depression fucking sucks.
Indeed, especially that 2020 one was a bitch.
Oh yeah, 2020 was rough for a lot of people, and you know what? You all made it through it. We all here survived 2020, so toast to y'all.
Indeed.
That was a hard one.
So let me just get my bearings here and find my bub stuff, because do you guys, Wolverine hates fascists? I don't know if you know that.
He not a fan. No, not a big fascist fan. Yeah, not. He might be what I would consider anti-fascist, very much against that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that sounds a lot like Antifa, and they're actually fascists. So,
is that what's the fa that Antifa is anti?
I'm trying to let me see. I don't know. I thought it was. This is a confusing subject for me, so I'm just going to choose to end the conversation.
All right.
I'm gonna call you a cuck, and then I'm going to leave.
Perfect. All right, fantastic.
No, so I know I'd said I was going to do chronological, but I feel like that will get tedious. So I'm basically just whatever I read or pops into mind about Wolverine each week that I'm like, okay, that's a thing that's stuck in my mind. I want to talk about that.
That's
what I'm
going to do.
It's Bub Facts. And hopefully each time I can have something as awesome as this sequence from comics that I've got here to look at.
Ooh. So
this is from Greg Rucka's run on Wolverine. This is from 2009, I believe, something like that.
Sure.
And this is this is some real dirt bag Logan era shit. You know what I mean? This is after he got his memories back. But before he'd really started on the journey of truly just figuring out how to make sense of all that shit and live a life that isn't completely just violence left and right all the time. I mean, he eventually ends up back there, but nonetheless, anyway, point being, he's on the road right now, which is often what Wolverine solo comics were.
Oh yeah, for sure.
just kind of like, how did he have time to be on the road so much? I don't know. He was, at a certain point, he was a headmaster of a school, and he was also an Avenger, and who knows? But don't ask questions. So
Comics
here he
time.
is. This is at the end of a little arc where he had found a cult in this small town that had been like, really exploiting the people of the town. And, he did what he does best eventually and just kind of murdered them all.
Like you do.
And so he's talking to Nightcrawler. And Nightcrawler's like, it must be hard to punish yourself when your healing factor fights you every inch of the way. He says, you have no idea. And yet here you are doing your best impression of a fish. And Nightcrawler says, we've both seen innocence suffer before, my friend. We've both seen the inhumanity of man to his fellow man. Why is Lucy Braddock so different that you drive, Lucy Braddock, rather, so different that you drive across the country for 3 days without rest to meet me here and to engage in this vain attempt to torture your liver?
Pours another beer.
And so Lucy Braddock is the girl that was, she was his neighbor in this like temporary spot he was sleeping at. And she was scared of him. She hated him. She thought she would walk by him in the hallway and think like, this guy is fucking scary and gross.
Which, to be fair.
Yeah, true. And then she was murdered by this cult. And, Logan doesn't matter that she didn't like him too much.
Nope.
He's not a fan. So 17's too young to die. 70 some would say is too young. We have both seen too much death, lost too many we have cared for. But as tried as it is to say, Logan, death is part of life, even unnatural death, even perhaps murder. Not murder. He says, you think? I do not advocate it, of course, but I would point out that every Judeo-Christian religion has murder in the basic text. Cain slew Abel, and thus the world knew murder. One could argue that murder is as natural as the dying of old age. You don't really believe that. I'm no longer sure what I believe, my friend. So we've got the beginnings of
yeah.
Well, not really the beginnings. He's kind of wavered here and there with his faith over the years.
He's always questioned his faith, which given the shit that happens to the poor blue elf.
Yeah, considering the fact like that he is a blue elf,
right? It doesn't help things.
Actions always speak louder than words. You know this better than anyone. Your actions have always marked you to me as a good man, as an honorable man. Uh-oh. He didn't respond to that. 3 days ago, I killed 27 men. So, okay. That's a challenge.
That he counted, right? That he, it's not like...
He looks a little forlorn there. Not much to say to that, huh? He says, you were enraged all the way to the bone. And these men, they had earned this rage. He says, you're looking for an excuse. No, my friend, I'm straining to understand. Because if you tell me that these 27 men were innocents, then you have everything, then you are everything you have always feared yourself to be, and you would have to be stopped. And you would stop me? No, but I would die trying.
Aww.
Logan looks at him like that. That's actually Logan going, I respect that, dude.
I appreciate that.
They were a cult, and they broke into town, made it afraid. They kidnapped women and girls, and they used them up. You're describing evil, my friend, and evil begets evil. Me. He says, I see. Is that your question, Logan? If that's your question, Logan, I cannot help you. You were a priest. Absolve me. Oh, that'd be wonderful if it worked like that, wouldn't it? What a world we would have. Legions of sinners all committing their crimes with abandon, safe in the knowledge that absolution was just one quick trip to the church away. And actually, there's actually kind of a world that does that right now.
Yeah, that's a very big part of. It's a very big part of like a lot of Christian theology.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on your sect.
They tried it once, during the Middle Ages. Enough gold, you could be forgiven for anything. Would you like that? Such a hollow forgiveness? Do I need forgiveness? Isn't that what you're after? Sorry. Isn't that what you're after? Were those men evil? Without question. By killing them in your rage, are you evil? You are unique, Logan, and I do not speak of what has been done to you. Is the wolf evil when it culls the sickness from the herd? And, so he's suggesting that Wolverine's role is his archetype, I suppose, in the world is more of like a wolf that culls the sickness from the herd. That's kind of interesting thing to think about, I think.
Interesting way to look at it.
I mean, the thing about Wolverine is he will never accept that type of thing fully.
No.
But it is good to know that he's got friends that, you know, see value in the fucking horrible thing that he does sometimes.
Right. He's the best at what he does, but it isn't very nice.
Yeah, I mean, like, because really, like, you have a cult of people. I mean, of course, this is fictional, but there's real cults that really exploit and abuse people and use them up. I was hearing about one the other day that was like sending photos of the girl that was in the cult, having sex with all kinds of people to her family.
Oh my God! Yeah,
they didn't want anything. They weren't.
No, they just want to make her suffer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And well, I think it was also just like to show them we own you, and also, and the podcast is actually Behind the Bastards, and Robert Evans couldn't understand why they would do that really, and it kind of came to me. I was like, I kind of wish I could just reach out to him and tell him I think I understand, because they're basically making it to where even if she ever escapes, she's ruined with them, basically.
Right.
You know, like they're never going to see her the same way. So they technically they will always own her in some way. You know, and that's fucked up. Anyway,
because it's about power, right? It's they know they have it and they want to abuse it.
So yeah, I just thought that was interesting to think about, and then also a funny thing that I read. So I'd read House of M whenever Wolverine regains his memories afterward, right?
Yeah.
He technically regains them during like the alternate reality thing, but then he retains them after.
Right, after everything gets reshuffled.
But I'd never read anything immediately after that, I realized. So I never read, like, what does he do next? Right?
Oh, sure.
Have you?
I read, like, mainline X-Men after that, but I wasn't reading Wolverine, because, like, I didn't really like Wolverine back then. I kind of thought he was one note and overdone.
He kind of was, until this is really the kind of the turning point, honestly.
Right.
So what? And this is just a funny little thing that I won't get too into, but it's like fucking hilarious. So basically, it picks up with that in Wolverine Origins, and not Origin. That's the miniseries that told his very beginning origin. Wolverine Origins was the ongoing, mostly written by Daniel Way, that basically dealt with him addressing these memories that he now had.
Right.
And the first thing that happens is he is everybody's Dum Dugan is in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. for whatever reason at the time, and he is fucking freaking out. And he is on calls with all kinds of senators and scientists and other military people in various places across the world, and everybody is fucking shitting themselves.
Oh no.
Because they're like, he's telling me he's got his memories back. And they're like, what? Which ones? And he's like, all of them.
All of them.
And they're fucking like burning shit. They're burning papers. They're fucking shredding documents. There's a couple of guys fucking kill themselves.
Oh shit. Fuck.
I was laughing so fucking hard, like, oh my god.
Oh shit.
They know. He's gonna know. He's gonna remember us, what we did to him. Like,
oh yeah. No, it's boy, yeah. Yeah, local libraries often have a lot of comics. I think Greg's comment there. Check out your local library if you're looking for some comics, because they probably got some.
It's true. They my local library was instrumental in me getting back into comics as an adult after I kind of read Civil War and stuff, and then was like, oh, what else is there? And I think at that point I went and checked out some Ultimate X-Men, because that was written by that same guy. I forget his name now though. And then I don't know. Anyway, but the thing about X-Men is they're mutants. An allegory. It's often used as an allegory for things, for
minority
certain
groups
stuff. And yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, over the years, that's been done to varying degrees of effectiveness and a little bit more on the nose than not sometimes. But in the last 5 years almost.
God, it is coming on 5 years now. Holy shit.
Yeah. Right around the time that it seems like it's going to end will be 5 years.
That's it's been a good 5 years of X-Men books though.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about it with Blurred a little bit, but like Claremont will always be Claremont, and he set the foundation in place for a lot of stuff, and he established things that can, nothing's ever going to take that away. But like issue by issue, moment by moment. This is just the best era of X-Men comics, in my opinion.
I think you're right. It's hard for me to admit that, but I think just like the whole line is fucking killer.
Yep. Like the worst stuff, in my opinion, is still pretty good.
Like I think the books I've enjoyed the least in this. So like the Astonishing Iceman. I'm like, this book is fine, but I'm thinking to like,
I don't know. I liked it a lot because it's just like I like his attitude and shit. You know,
that's fair.
He's just fun. He's a fun character. But yeah,
I didn't really care for it, but I'm like, wow, but this book would have been fucking killer back in like the AVX time or like the San Francisco era. Just like, oh my god, I would have killed for this book.
Yeah, you compare it to stuff like that, and it absolutely stands out as like, oh god, yeah.
Like that's the bottom here, and it's just like, oh god, things are great.
Well, so there's overarching villains in the comics now. If you haven't read them at all or aren't familiar, called Orcus. They were introduced in House of X, Hours of 10, those two alternating maxi series, whatever, in 2019. That introduced this current era of Krakoa and Resurrection and all this stuff. Nonetheless, Orcus is a big bastard, and so I've got right here. This is this is something said by Cy Spurrier, but it's essentially Jonathan Hickman created the concept initially of Orcus, but he didn't have like a lot behind it. I've been reading about this and learning like what was really the creation of Orcus. It's like he didn't have a lot. It was just okay. So this shield has been dissolved at this point in the 616. So people that are former Shield, former Hydra, former every organization with the acronym, and the spy organization, everything like that's what Orcus is made up of. And there's actually the logo. I realized the logo is a key to tell you how much of the makeup, the structure of Orcus is each one of those.
Oh, I did not know that.
So when you see the logo that's like shaded this way,
yeah.
So it's 31% aim, 24% shield, 16% strike. Then you got sword, alpha flight. Oh, then it gets kind of problematic with hammer
and Hydra.
Armor. And look, to their credit, Hydra is the lowest represented one, but they shouldn't be there at all.
But like, AIM is also not great either, right? Because they're a spin-off of Hydra.
True. Oh, yeah.
So
that's
really,
right.
It's 35% Hydra. Plus, how often have Shield agents also been part of Hydra and Hammer agents? And there's Canadians, like they've got Alpha Flight. Those Alpha Flight, those Canadians are fucking trouble.
So, yeah, those Canadians, real problem. They want to build a wall. You're looking at the wrong border, folks.
Right.
Keep those fucking Canucks out of here. Except for Wolverine. He's the only one that's okay to, anyway, so this is how Orcus came to be, what their goal was, and all that. And this is all filled out. This is all written by Cy Spurrier and sorry, let me pull that back up, my info here. Cy Spurrier and I guess it was Jerry Duggan.
Oh, okay.
That kind of filled out the, or maybe it was Kieran Gillen, actually. So this is Cy Spurrier here. He says, let me pull this down. It was Al Ewing. I'm sorry, Cy Spurrier and Al Ewing. Al and I sat down for a long time to come up with what organizational structure diagram that we're now all using as our cheat sheet. There's a few sneakily coded things in there if people want to go hunting for anagrams. It struck us that if we're going to run with this as the big bad organization, that we can slowly reveal bits of it and what it's really all about and what's behind it and what it can do. It's not just the baddie in my book, it's the baddie in all of our books. For that to work, it has to be sprawling. It has to be at least as clever as the cleverest writer. They would be holistic. They would have a holistic approach. It's not just a bunch of scientists coming up with mutant weapons. It's propaganda. It's sociology. It's a few things we haven't even mentioned yet that are really sneaky and clever. Each of us telling a story or series of stories which comes to a satisfying modular conclusions and always pick up again for the next season. But none of them will be. This is a story where the X-Men fight and beat Orcus.
Right.
So, yeah. There will be bits of that along the way, but it's always much bigger than just the stuff that goes into one book. The goal is to make each book feel really satisfying on a human character level while making sure that each perpetuate this beautiful tapestry. It's like fighting a war. You don't see planes flying over there, fighting and coming back. It's just one piece in the theater of operations. That's the thing about being in the X office. It's the nicest war I've ever fought. Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting, peek behind the curtain. So
yeah, for sure. And I think it really gets to like what makes Orcus unique versus some of the other groups in the history of X-Men that Orcus is kind of like built in the mold of just like they're kind of one motive, one method groups, right? Like this thing about mutants bothers us, we're going to solve it this way, whether it's guns or sentinels or what have you.
Right. We have one cartoonishly evil plot that we're going to do at a time kind of thing.
Right. Where this is like everything, right? It's politics, it's propaganda, it's religion, it's technology, it's biotechnology. It's time travel.
It's like with enough practice doing bigotry over the years, people make note of that. It's in the same way that like, people who are anti-bigotry, right? We'll tend to mark the successes and the wins and like, glad we're past that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, the people that lost though, they're also marking down things.
Right.
They're also making their own version of history and like, what did we do wrong?
Right.
And that led to this, in both in real life and in Orcus, and as well as like the creation of, we talked about with Blurred again, we talked about how writers and artists today seem to benefit from the decades prior of writers and artists. Whereas like,
right.
For one thing, you have writers and artists today that started out wanting to write and draw comic books.
Yes, you do.
Which is not what, just 20, 30 years ago, Chris Claremont didn't start out like, I want to write comics. You know what I mean? So it's like a thing that people ended up doing rather than so you kind of they hit the ground running a lot more these days, I think. Rather than like trying to find their footing with the medium.
And I think with something like, the X-Men office, right? Like that's a 60-year-old property at this point with a lot of history. And because you had some real long runners like Claremont that like you have a lot to build off of, right? Where it's not starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, and just to go back to what we were saying earlier, this era would absolutely not be possible without Claremont.
No.
Having done what he did, just to make that clear. I don't want anybody to think that I'm like putting him down.
Yeah, I don't think you could do it without him or even like Bendis.
But he's still very much like, even today, he still talks about the X-Men in this, like, it's mine. It was my vision kind of thing. And it's like, I get it, man. I get it. And in a lot of ways, your vision was great. But in some ways, it was, okay, whatever. This is very specific and just what you want, not necessarily what anybody feels is the best. Anyway, but this is a group of people who are presumably all, are hardcore X-Men fans and, working together. And I think that's, as someone who used to play in bands and stuff, I've always loved the, greater than the equal of some of its parts kind of artistry, where it's like, yeah, I can sit and play guitar by myself. That's cool or whatever. But like when I get with some people and we kind of do a thing that comes together and it locks in and you like look at each other like, oh my God, this is working. It's fucking great.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
not that I have any musical talent, but
so with all that said, Orcus is benefiting from all of the years prior as well. So the initial establishment of Doomsday Network, which is, I guess, what they consider Orcus, based on evolutionary research regarding the extinction level population density of Homo sapiens superior. See The Cro-Magnon Problem by Dr. Aaliyah Greger. And I just realized as I'm reading this. Yeah,
say again.
I just realized as I was reading this that like that it kind of calls to mind. I don't know if this is intentional, but the whole white replacement thing, theory bullshit. There was some studies done several years ago that when they made a lot of headlines and still get brought up that like in like I think something like 30-40 years or whatever, that white people will be a majority minority in the US.
Right.
Meaning that like there will be more white people than there are anything else. But
if you add up all the other people,
there's more. Yeah.
Right.
And I think that was kind of like what broke a lot of people's brains along with Obama.
Right. Well, I also think that like the issue with studies like that, and this is you've seen this with a lot of like great replacement theory writing. I guess we should explain great replacement theory because it's going to come up a few times today.
Yeah.
That is the theory. Okay, it is the conspiracy theory. That there is a concerted effort to displace white people, however you want to define white people, because that's a whole other can of worms, with non-white people, however you want to define that term.
Yeah, I mean, look, if a time traveler from the 30s came to the present day, they would be like, "Oh, we gotta." Yeah, I agree, man. Fuck those Irish.
Right.
And you'd be like, "Wait, what? No, they're white. What? They're white? No, they're Irish.
They're Irish, right? But then, like,
which goes to show how stupid all that is. But
there were like, I forget if it which segregation laws were like, legally speaking, in the South during certain parts of segregation, Arabs were white.
Oh my god!
Like, Italians and Greeks and Irish people have not always been white. Turkish people are on and off white depending on who you ask and when.
Right.
So
dumb. Anyways, yeah. Sorry.
So it's like the definition of white is there is no white race. I mean, there's not really races, but if we're doing like ethnicities, right? Like, it doesn't really break down cleanly that way. So yeah. But anyways, that is what great replacement theory is. And yeah, I would say this takes a lot from that, but also like, in that it's a science thing, right? There's this read this problem this doctor wrote.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, sorry.
In our real world, you go back far enough and some asshole wrote a paper.
Uh-huh.
And then some other, and that paper was debunked, wasn't good science. But then someone reads that, and then they write a junk paper. And then, but that gets debunked, right? Well, now some other asshole will cite those two papers in their third paper, and so on and so forth. So then you get to the modern day where like a racialist, someone who believes in these racist theories and that there are superior races, will go, I can cite this study and that study and this study and that study.
Yeah.
Well, all of them were debunked and discredited decades ago, but it is just like, oh, look at, they're just appealing to all of these citations.
Right. They're not actually applying scientific method to anything. They're just like looking for something to confirm their bias, which is, just still a problem today, a big problem.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're using the edifice of science to create like a facade rather than like actually doing real research and scientific research and stuff to come to a more accurate conclusion. They have their conclusion already written and they're working backwards.
Yep. Pseudo eugenics type shit. Exactly. McLeod.
Yeah, it is exactly eugenics bullshit.
So, with all that in mind, unfortunately we had to put that in your mind.
Yep. Sorry.
So yeah, it goes on to say recruitment of assets in strategic organizations, as well as funding from black budgets and other human-centric financial considerations. And you can, each one of these elements you could definitely relate to a real life thing.
Yeah.
So like recruitment of assets in strategic organizations, think tanks, academic, areas, media, you've got. I did a deep dive stream on Blaze Media whenever that song came out a while back. That it was like clearly, he'd been propped up a little bit, and I did some digging, and because it's like the guy that like promoted him had Blaze Media as part of his resume.
Weird they keep coming up.
And then you look at the people that Blaze Media has, including Eric July and Alex Stein and Duck Dynasty guy and all this shit, and it's like these are people that are known to be disruptors of discourse kind of thing.
Right.
And it's like they're very specifically chosen, cultivated, groomed, you might say, in order to prop them up and give them a platform to fund them and put them at the forefront of discourse so that they can fucking disrupt it and to insert their ideas and so on. as well as funding from black budgets. You could look at black budgets as like dark money.
Yeah.
You know, libertarian funded dark money is typically the thing. A lot of it comes from the Koch brothers. Well, I guess it's just the one Koch now. But
yeah.
Absorption and adaptation of various organizational assets in a next generational infrastructure build for doomsday. Operating under the premise that there are 3 areas of concern: population, financial, and territorial. Orcus assets established watchdog programs to observe undetected mutant influence. And, you know, there's definitely been some kind of observation happening that I think most people were not aware of for decades at this point. And it's only just now becoming clear how much certain people were paying very close attention to a lot of shit. And to, you know.
Well, I think a lot of people, like, as much as people in the information technology field would harp on about it, but like, how much of your information you give away on a daily basis and how much that is used against you, we really sleep on.
Yeah, it's like, if we are able to survive long enough, there'll one day be a revelation about this type of thing and like how much it's been affecting us, and like it'll be a lot to process. So yeah, you know, all right, let me see. Okay, so 2 years ago, observation begins, and this was released around the same time as the House of X first began, kind of thing. 2 years ago, observation begins. 1 year ago, population alert. Its instances of X gene activation have spiked, along with the reemergence of established mutant alpha types long observed as active in the mutant cause. So this was after, for several years, there was no mutant births or activations because of no more mutants. And then suddenly there were.
Right.
And this is when Orcus's protocols kind of went into effect. 6 months ago, financial alert. Long observed shell companies wholly owned by the mutant activist Charles Xavier quietly purchased the 7th largest pharmaceutical company in the world and recently announced 3 new drugs, which are poised to destabilize the industry and spread throughout global financial sectors. That's, I guess, one that there's not really an allegory for in real life. Because, I mean...
Well, okay, so I'm actually going to say there is, right? Like, all sides of the media really pay attention and try to pin their political enemies' bad actions on the bad actions of things like pharmaceutical companies, right? Like big pharma, right? Anti-vax movements, all the COVID denialism, which is all, you know, conspiracy based. But also you have things like the Sackler family and the opioid crisis, where that, you know, was we made a drug and manufactured an actual crisis and made $1 bajillion, right? So like, I think there is, you know, if you want to talk about like,
yeah, I just if you yeah, at the very, very surface level, sure. It's just that, like, because the drugs that Xavier's stuff created, they're actually good drugs.
They actually work, right?
They're
like
beneficial to people, and the only problem is that there had been a Sinister had done a little backdoor into them that was exploited. So
right, but also like you look at like the COVID vaccine, right? Like the medical science community worked their ass off for a year and change to make that a reality.
True.
And then you had some people work very hard to make that a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, very much. That is definitely. I can see what you're saying. That works. So yeah. Then 2 months ago, the mutant nation of Krakoa established, and then lots of bigots shit their pants. Whoops.
Right. What's the visibility problem, right? Now you have a minority that is in groups large enough to be seen.
They actually are. Well, I mean, they are declaring that we are equal. Is essentially what the establishment of Krakoa is. They're saying, you know, we're not waiting for permission to be equal. We are telling you we are, and we're giving you no choice in the matter. And that's what they didn't like. Because yeah, a lot of people are somewhat okay with mutants, you know, as long as they're not like getting too uppity, right? You know, they don't want them dead or anything, just they, you know, keep them to their place. As long as they know their place, right? And that's how certain people are, sadly, in real life. No, Bob, we have not hit Rufo yet. We're just kind of setting the groundwork for Orcus and how that relates to, And actually, it's kind of working kind of well because we're setting establishing some groundwork that is kind of necessary for Rufo as well.
Right.
It's almost like we did it on purpose. So, observation ends. Orcus protocols enacted. So the Cro-Magnon problem by Dr. Aaliyah Gregor began as humanitarian research into mutant repopulation following the Genosian genocide, which resulted in the death of over 16 million mutants. Dr. Gregor postulated that, despite best efforts, mutantdom would not be able to repopulate to significant enough numbers to become the eventual dominant species of Homo sapiens on Earth, due to factors including environmental, technological, and specific scientific advancements in genetic engineering and artificial intelligence. What she found disproved her theory. Not only were mutants reappearing at a higher rate than expected, but a regression analysis of previous growth patterns of mutants revealed that, if not for Genosha, mutants would have become the dominant species on Earth within 10 years, due to cascading biological, cultural, mutant positive variables. Notice that cultural aspect there.
Right. And that's a weird thing because, like, there wasn't a mutant culture till there was Krakoa, right? Like, not really.
I mean, that's one of the, we haven't talked about it much, but that's really one of the most awesome things that this whole era has done is just like, it's legitimately created culture of mutants.
Well, right.
And
Well, and I think to bring it, to tie it back into our real life villain for today, because like her theory it predates Krakoa, right? Like, she was saying these pressures already existed, and you look at how much they try to make it about the homosexual agenda, the transgender agenda, etc., right? It is creating a unified culture where there is none. Even, like, to go back further, like a lot of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, a lot of Islamophobic conspiracy theories sort of presume that these minority groups have a uniform opinion and culture when that is ahistoric.
Yes. Bob, we will, if you remind us, I'm going to start your comment here. We will, I'll give you that toward the end. So what was I going to say? Shit. Well, it's weird. It's almost like, I think somebody said this one time, something about streams and politics and culture or something like that. But I don't know, some asshole.
Yeah. But also just think, like, because X-Men is sort of always, not always, but for a long time been very keyed into these sort of like bigoted groups versus minorities, the history of that, and that you have a lot of like devoted fans running the X office now, that they really, it feels like they work to tie a lot of that in, that you can see the real world politics and how they've influenced the X-Men politics over the years, and how that all blends really seamlessly in a lot of ways.
It really does. And I mean, it helps that, like, at least, it's kind of, I guess, unfortunate, or I don't know what the circumstances were that led to this, but when Krakoan era started off, there were several women, several queer people, several people of color working on the books.
Yep.
Now there are fewer.
And it is a shame.
I mean, I know Kieran Gillen is queer. I know that, and I think that's about it as far as I know. I mean, of course, people are allowed to have their privacy as well.
Right.
So who knows? But yeah, that definitely, I don't think there's any. Well, I guess I don't know what a couple of the writers look like Steve Orlando and stuff. I don't know. I mean, could be people of color I'm not aware of. Who knows? But generally, sorry, what's his name? Fox, I think it is. Orlando, or maybe both of them are both gay. So the guy whichever one was writing Iceman, I was looking into him a little bit.
Oh, okay, cool.
I forget his name. Anyways, I mean, how is it really incorrect though?
I would say,
I feel like
there's a co-linked morbidities with them, right? Because I think, like, okay, so look at how much the politics of 9/11 affected culture, right? In that instance, culture was downstream of politics.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I would say that there are certain.
They're kind of inseparable, and they influence each other in different ways.
Well, I mean, that was kind of a seismic moment or two that like there are certain moments that will happen that I think
sure.
JFK assassination type shit. That's like, oh, fucking just there's a big ass spike in the stream there.
Right.
Anyway,
but I think that they are very intermingled.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just a starting point to think about these concepts as being, kind of symbiotic in a way.
It turns out, because that's a saying by a shitbird conservative. It turns out like a lot of those things sound true on the surface, and they may even be, partially true, but you can take them apart and analyze them and get a better truth.
Yeah, it has that feedback loop. I'd say is and that's been made possible due to social media for sure.
Oh, so social media is the river delta of culture and politics and
look,
cyber warfare.
I guess credit, I suppose, to fucking chuds for this, but like they've seized on that and pretty effectively.
Yeah,
and they seem to come out ahead in the game when it comes to the confusion created, the nonsense that's put out there as opposed to anyone else.
It turns out when you can lie infinitely at infinite volume and depth.
Yeah.
It's probably which we're going to get to later on as well.
Yeah, I mean that's literally what this is about.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to this. We'll finish this off real quick just to let's see. So yeah, Dr. Greger's new timeline suggests that humanity has 20 years left. So Orcus was enacted whenever there'd been people paying attention, and then money was probably waiting to be injected into this situation. Just like there is in real life. There's a reason why, that like we talked about it the other day, there's content that is so fucking good that is not seen by anybody.
Right.
Because it's because YouTube is not about good content.
No, it's about engagement, because Google is an advertising firm that happens to run a media company and a search engine.
Yep. Exactamundo. In fact, let me I want to show something real quick. It's a quick thing, and it is relevant actually, but it's not something I plan to show till right now.
So while is that taking a minute to pull up?
Yeah.
Go on a bit of a tangent. Okay, so we were talking in the House of F Discord, which if you're not a member, you should become a member. Check that out in the link in the down below, I imagine.
I think so. If not, I'll pull a link in a minute.
About this new game, what is it called? Pal Park or something. It's a Pokemon clone where like they very clearly used AI to make the models and stole a lot of fan art and official Pokemon art to make their critters, but it's hugely popular. But the whole thing was it seems kind of astroturf to me, just because like it was made to look like a meme and be very memeable. And the company that made it was involved in like NFTs and crypto. And so like they were already tied into that sort of meme space mentality.
Yeah.
So it just seems like, because this is not the first type of game that, in that like Pokemon clone genre, but it's hit really big this week. It just came out last week. And it just feels to me like it was because it was forced by this like social media manipulation to be memeable, and therefore because it's memeable, it's meme spread, right? They're like a virus, they're brain viri, and so it became popular not on its own quality, but as this like as a meme, basically.
Yeah,
that you could spend $60 to buy, which is, I mean, basically an NFT at that point, right? Like. So that was just an interesting chat we had in the House of F Discord earlier today, which I'm trying to be more active on again now that I have some free time for the next half hour.
Crap. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Took a second for my computer. I want to pull this up. So this is just like how long is it? Not even. It's a little over a minute long, but man, it says a lot. And this channel, before you watch this, I want you to know this channel has like, I don't know, 2,000 subscribers.
Tired of explaining your unwavering support for guns amid constant mass shootings? Having a hard time selling people on slashing Social Security and Medicare? How's a good Republican supposed to explain all this stuff? Guess what? You don't have to, because you've got anti-woke everything. Skip that uncomfortable policy junk and stick to the culture wars. Look, a gay M&M. See how easy it is? All you need are a few unrelated issues and plenty of outrage, and you're on your way to anti-woke everything. Of course, you could try to explain how Republicans helped add $5 trillion to the debt when they gave rich people a huge tax cut. Or you could tell people Joe Biden is coming to take away their gas stoves. Congratulations, you're now an anti-woke cooking crusader. Anti-woke everything works great for toilets, light bulbs, bathrooms, fashion, fictional characters, books, and of course, plain old speech. Why talk about your unpopular policies when you can be outraged about candy, cooking, and cartoon characters? Anti-woke everything. Let the culture wars work for you.
Yep.
That's so good.
So good. And then, just to, see, I saw it in here. I saw it. I swear to God. Where's it at? I'm trying to pause it right on the thing just because it's relevant.
Relevant? I think I know what you're looking for. I think I saw it in there too.
Yeah.
There it is.
Well, there's comic book, and then there's arugula. Really? I didn't even know about the arugula
I
one.
guess so.
CRT. It's CRT is the one that was looking
It's
for.
CRT, yeah. CRT is the
lesbian cartoon villain. Yep. I
Yeah,
mean, well, that's what they all are now, according to Ethan Van Sciver. They're all just like blackballed lesbians,
I'm one of those things, but you'll have to guess yourself. They definitely put the fascism. The fashion.
Yeah.
Chandler, you get 1 point. Spend it wisely.
Just one. All right. So, yeah, and the thing about Orcus is, as has been revealed little by little, but definitely since the Fall of X began, they've been talking of Dr. Stasis. He's I'm not going to get too into the weeds on it, but he's a Mr. Sinister clone. But really, so is Mr. Sinister a clone of another guy? It doesn't matter. Point being, Dr. Stasis is a version of the same guy that begat Mr. Sinister. They have the same end goal with different tactics of getting there. There's actually 4 of them that all have different paths of trying to achieve the same result. But Dr. Stasis, whereas Mr. Sinister is all about genetics and like trying to use mutants and whatever else he can to create genetic supremacy for himself so that he can be the best thing ever, basically. But whereas Dr. Stasis's path to that is to just eradicate anything that is not human. So
keep things in stasis. Yeah, eugenics.
Yeah. He's been incredibly effective at it. He's only part of Orcus, but he's an important part.
Right.
He's the human relations public relations kind of guy. I was trying to find an image of him. I had some somewhere. Now I don't know where the fuck I put him, but you think I'd be a little more prepared.
Like it's a reveal that he is one of these 4 Sinisters. Like you
yeah,
don't
I
figure
guess
that out right away.
I should have spoiler alerted that. I'm sorry. My bad.
Because initially he is a guy. He is a guy in a fishbowl helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Cool looking fishbowl helmet, but like
yeah, he's got good taste. I'll give him that.
If you are related to Nathaniel Essex at all, you have just the finest of fashion senses.
Yep, he's the head of the human resources pedal. And what that really means is he's a propagandist.
Yeah.
And in that he has been very open, and at least in his internal communications within Orcus, that of what his goals are, and how they're, the point of what they're doing, and what he really wants to do, and so on and so forth. And in several recent communications, he has talked about how we're on our way. We've managed to take down this Krakoan state. We've got mutants on, they're basically spread out. They're off planet. They're, we're doing it. And then once we get Cyclops Spoiler alert for what's going on right now. Once Cyclops is tried, found guilty in Paris, and executed for all to see for all the mutants' crimes, then public support will be on our side enough that we can move on to dealing with those Avengers and those Fantastic Four and all these these goody two shoes with their superpowers that don't like fascism and stuff.
And that really have turned up their anti-fascism dial lately.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. I've actually got I do have a folder that's marked Marvel anti-fascism somewhere that we could look at a couple of those incidents. Marvel anti-fascism here. So just to give a taste of that, because it came up, so I got to show it. Here is just one page from the newest Thunderbolt series, which is explicitly going after Nazis and Red Skull in particular. Good times. You can, like I told Morgan, you can hear the hip hop music in this page right here.
You really can.
Let's see. Then you got the new Destroyer, which is actually Sharon Carter.
Oh, damn.
And that's pretty cool.
I'm going to try very hard not to complain about how they did her dirty in the MCU, but that is just my professional opinion.
Yeah, maybe she'll turn around. Who knows?
We'll see.
She calls them cosplay Goebbels here. That's pretty funny. And then blows them the fuck up. She's got here's right on the cover. You got him having assassinated Red Skull. And then here is spoiler alert for Fall of the House of X #1. You got Colossus explicitly calling them fascists. Anybody, let's see, and tell all the murderers in red that anybody aligned with fascism will die squirming under my metal foot.
Fucking love it.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've kind of pushed, I won't spoil this, but they definitely pushed Colossus way too far.
Yep. That guy has had enough.
Anyway, so that is going on. There's actually several more incidents, and I plan to do a video maybe I'll do a stream segment. We're just looking at how goddamn based Marvel is being right now with explicit anti-fascism.
Yes.
And if you ever want evidence that the chuds have no effect on this stuff, right? Like, they have no effect. In fact, if anything, they just encourage them the same way that they encourage me and Bob and Turf and stuff. Because if they had an effect, they wouldn't be doing this. They wouldn't be. Right. They might tell similar stories to what they're telling, but they wouldn't be explicitly saying "fuck fascism" in fucking comics the way that they're doing.
Well, anyway. And I think it really, like when you're talking about a company like Marvel, because the big two are companies, right? Mm-hmm. They are bean counter driven industries.
Yeah. To be clear, anytime I'm talking about something like this and I'm saying Marvel, and I'll try and be more specific in the future, I don't mean fucking corporate Marvel. I'm talking about the creators who are working.
The creators, right? But the bean counters let these writers go off because they see the numbers, right? They're like, this is killing.
Yep. Yeah, if it was affecting their sales, they would.
It would stop in a heartbeat.
I mean, to be honest, that's the reason that they're doing this Fall of Krakoa now, because from what I can tell, it seems like the sales started dipping.
Right.
With Krakoa. And this is the brilliance of Jonathan Hickman, of course, had accounted for this. He knew that at some point it might not be as popular, if it even got popular.
Right.
And
they left themselves out from the beginning.
Yep. It was basically the Moira thing and the Sinister thing were the two necessary elements for, this is when we can pull the plug anytime we want to.
Right.
And do it our way. And they're doing it awesomely. Anyways, so but the thing about fascists and like Orcus and being fascists is they're all eugenicists.
Pretty much, yeah.
They have decided that there's a certain type of person that is the right kind of person, the only acceptable kind of person, at least to have any rights, and in some more extreme cases to even exist. And yeah, eugenics is bad, guys.
Well, okay. To bring Orcus back into the real world when they're talking about after we do in the mutants, we're gonna do in all these other groups. The thing about fascism is that it will always shrink the tent. It will try to be a big tent initially, and then just it tightens the noose around itself. which is one of the reasons it's kind of self-defeating over a period of time. But
I forget the guy's name, but the perfect example is a guy who was a literal Nazi who helped establish the National Socialists in Germany. He was explicitly fascist Nazi, but he was gay, and he was good friends with one Adolf Hitler. They were buddies. They were very good friends.
And then Hiddescent had him killed.
Hiddescent, as soon as they took power, and there's a Night of Long Knives and all that, like he was one of the guys that there's like, well, okay, but he served his purpose, but he's a gay guy, so we gotta,
we don't need him anymore.
So yeah, they will use people up, and that's the thing about when you see minorities that are for whatever reason they're choosing to help these ideas along. Eventually, their usefulness will run out.
Quislings get the wall eventually too.
Useful tokens, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's how essentially it's all based on eugenics. Strasser, I think that maybe you're right.
Might be it, yeah.
And speaking of eugenics, I think you got an article for us.
Yeah, let's pull this bad boy up. So I've got it shared. If you can just do the thing. So this is an article. It's a full spread on the New York Times. So they've got this like crazy intro thing. They've looked at all these emails from politicians and think tanks. It's called America is Under Attack, the Inside of the Anti-DEI, what's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Crusade.
Uh-huh.
And this is from today's, January 20th, 2024, or yesterday's rather, was when it was written, but I think it was published today in the Sunday Times. And this goes into a lot of the people involved behind all these pushes. I'm gonna just pop up one of these here. Fine, I'm gonna put my buddy Chris Rufo, and he gets a couple of mentions in here.
Oh, look at that! Thanks, New York Times.
And the New York Times is nice enough to even link me the tweet.
Thanks for doing something useful for once.
For fucking once in your life. Yeah.
Well, not in their life, but in the last several fucking years for sure. Like, Jesus Christ.
I have complained about the New York Times and their shitty fucking coverage of a lot of the issues that they lay out in this article as being bad. That they either both sides or they like, oh, but they've got a point. New York Times has done a lot of hand wringing to help these fuckers. And I'm glad they've come around, but also fuck them.
And I just want to say too that like before we get even into this stuff, I want to express to anybody that wonders like what if you're watching and you ever think you don't hear these people out enough, like you're always just so hardline against here even listening to what they're saying kind of thing. It's like, well, no, for one thing, I do listen to what they've said. I just recognize that their very premises are flawed,
right?
And that I feel like this shit gets enough leeway, enough discourse real estate that I'm not going to be one to fucking do it.
Right. Well, what is the, it goes back to the classic question about centrism. Okay. So what is the center between I want to kill all the gays and I would like to not die, right? Like I would like there not to be slavery and I would like slaves. What's the middle ground there? Find me the center.
Well, the middle ground is misinformation and lack of comprehension of the state of things. That's really the only way that you can exist in the middle. Honestly, being honest with yourself is to not understand the factors at play and to have just bought into misinformation.
Right.
I think. Yeah.
I would agree. But this article really does a pretty good job laying out a lot of the forces behind that. And Chris Rufo is a major player with his whole big anti-CRT, and that's critical race theory. Which for
you guys heard of that?
Yeah, well, you've probably heard of CRT, but they very rarely use what it means, and also they don't really talk about what it is because we can pull this motherfucker up, and in the asshole's own words, I will read the tweet. We have successfully frozen their brand, critical race theory, into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category. This is part of a thread, but I'm not signed into Twitter on this computer, so I can just pull up this one part of the tweet.
Well, like, and just to be clear, he on purpose wrote this in public. Like, holy shit! Like, this is the reason why this guy. It's almost like if he was being more cloak and dagger about it, people would be more aware of him, maybe.
Right.
You know what I
he's
mean?
out there saying it. And so, like, how do you, it makes it hard to accuse him of anything because he's public about all of his plans, right? Like, there is no secrecy. He's just out there saying it. So what critical race theory is,
yeah, the chat's got it right about what it actually is.
I mean, that is what,
to a degree.
So what it is, it's the legal, it's a legal theory that US law, because our law is usually additive, right? We very rarely repeal laws. We just add more laws on to the books. And they're supposed to supersede, but they don't always. That because we have because segregation was built into our legal framework and has not been removed wholly, that structural system will always enforce racism in some ways. And this legal theory is not actually like a predominant legal theory. It's a niche legal theory. It would be hard to get on a court if you were like a law professor and a judge who espoused critical race theory, even before Chris Rufo made it a thing, before he made this whole moral panic around it. It's a niche legal theory. But because it's a niche legal theory and you have to be a fucking nerd to know about it, it works as a thing you can weaponize.
Well, and this, and to keep it, to kind of relate it back to comics and how this stuff is exactly the same tactic as like the culture war bullshit is,
right.
That it's weaponized ignorance. So like, the people that actually think that the stories are bad and that's why comics aren't selling, that don't understand the fucking, kind of like paradigm shift of consumption and distribution in the last several years. Like, it's a gap of understanding that is filled in with what people's biases want to hear, essentially.
So to answer Maestro's question, indigenous studies is actually not part of critical race theory, the legal study. That is a whole other separate legal set of legal studies. And actually, noted asshole Judge Gorsuch, who's on the Supreme Court, is actually like weirdly good on indigenous rights and like tribal rights. It's kind of interesting. It's like the one thing he's good on.
I mean, so literally tweeted, but I mean, like, you're going to learn, Reggie, how like he's actually done quite a bit of work outside of tweeting that got him into that position. But yeah,
right. So we'll pull over because I've got the tabs up I can show. So this guy didn't just come out of nowhere. He worked for the Heritage Foundation for a bit before ending up at the Discovery Institute. And you're like, Morgan, what's the Discovery Institute?
It's about as good as the Discovery Channel. Okay.
It's worse. So the Discovery Institute. Anyone here know what the Ark Park is? The Ark Encounter.
Oh, the Ken Ham thing?
The Ken Ham thing. This is Ken Ham, who is a creationist, Christian dominionist organization that sort of got its legs under it in the early 2000s as pushing intelligent design and other lies to replace evolution with Christianity in public schooling.
Even though Ken Ham kind of looks exactly like a fucking Neanderthal.
Well, he looks like his Amish Wolverine. To bring it back to Year of the Bub, he's Amish Wolverine.
Good times. All right.
Shout out to the Scathing Atheist podcast for that one. But yeah, so he got his start doing work for them.
Wow.
That's sort of where he got his big name going. He was a fellow there for a while, and now he is with the Manhattan Institute, which is one of these billionaire think tanks that basically their funders, their financiers tell them, make something that looks official and scientific that hits this conclusion, and then they fucking hammer it out.
Yeah, it's conclusion first, quote unquote science.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it's funny how they call themselves the Manhattan Institute, because Manhattan is a word that most people are going to associate with, like, liberalism and
right.
Like progress and stuff like that. And it's like, nah. And that had to have been done on purpose. It had to.
It had to be, right. Or like trying to play off of the Manhattan Project.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. And they talk about how his alma mater is from Harvard. But what if that wasn't exactly true? So this is from the New Republic. So he went to the Harvard Extension School, which is not the same thing. And this article goes into details on the differences.
Well, I mean, maybe he doesn't understand the difference. Maybe he doesn't realize the difference, and that I mean, we don't have any proof that he realizes that there is like a different body that is responsible there, that they have like a different president or anything, right? Like,
well, I mean, he did work very hard to get.
I know. I was trying to find a segue there. I just couldn't do it.
Right. We can pull that one up over here too.
Yeah.
So, and he's of course, surprise, surprise, a eugenicist. He's got links to a eugenicist, who was involved in this. Harvard's former president was ousted, by part of Chris Rufo's efforts were involved in that, and he got this eugenicist to work with him on that.
Yes. And there's some questionable stuff going on there. I have not looked into the plagiarism accusations. I definitely think that, like, I watched some of the clips from that was the Senate or House?
It was a House hearing, yeah.
And that, look, these presidents did not do a good job there. Like her and then one other lady I saw that's kind of gone under the radar, but she's also a white lady. I wonder if there's something to that.
Yeah, why did the black lady get all the attention and not the white lady?
Kind of weird, but like
I wonder.
They both did not do strong enough. Like the things that they said. I don't know where they're coming from with that. Like, it's like they were doing legal speak to kind of like,
right,
cover all their bases and not say anything that, or whatever, but like in the context of the questions they were asked and in the era of the, in the atmosphere of what's going on with Israel right now and everything, it just did not come off too well. And they seized on that. Chud seized on that shit. And then the plagiarism stuff was brought up like immediately after that. Somehow, for whatever reason,
right?
It's like, oh well, we found that she's also done some plagiarism. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know, but it
was one of those things that it's that, infinite lies and infinite volume and depth, right? Like when you fart out so much bullshit, how can you even find the truth in a relevant amount of time for the discourse?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's like, it seems like she might have just, quit as like look, this is causing more bullshit for the school I care about, potentially,
right,
than is necessary. But of course that became a huge win for them.
Yeah.
If not like ultimately what happens at Harvard isn't a big fucking deal, I don't think, but like the fact that they successfully did that, it emboldens them, and that's the problem.
Well, here, it's so weird with the right wing. We're like, you have Chris Rufo trying to trade on Harvard as a credential, but the right is so anti-intellectual they have to like demonize Harvard, the institution, while propping up people who graduated from Harvard. I mean, look at all the people in Trump's orbit, for instance, that were Harvard alums. It's a rich people's school, right? Like,
well, I mean, it's kind of like how with Fandom Menace and like, Disney's bad, Marvel's bad, it's MCU, but then like Avatar comes out and it's like not immediately as obviously, I guess, to some chuds, the same kind of woke. So they're like championing that, right? Like, because that's a good one. And even though that's also Disney, like they will use whatever it's nihilism. Ultimately, nihilism is at the root of all this shit. They don't really believe in anything except for power's sake.
Well, that goes exactly back to the tweet, right? We're trying to wrap up everything we don't like under a brand, so we can all say the same thing, and that's what woke is, right? It's a snarl word. It is like a thought terminating cliche that you hear and you just assume it's bad, and you might have your own perception of what woke is and why it's bad, and I might have a different one. But as long as we're both complaining about things being woke, we can tell ourselves that we all mean the same thing.
Yep. They want to turn Harvard into a conservative institution, and they have a blueprint for how to do that now.
Right.
Somebody, I did not know this, McLeod. Thank you for that update. DeSantis is out.
Oh yeah, I put that in the House of F Discord earlier today. But yeah, he also endorsed Trump. So
of course he did. Of course. Now he's going to try and get a fucking VP spot at least. Or I mean, not at least
life.
VP. He'll settle for whatever Trump fucking tosses him, but he's gonna, fucking pure
I think
fucking cowardice.
His position will be official Trump salad tosser.
And I look, yeah, you're right. Which is disgusting to think about.
It really is, isn't it? What's
now
funny is Harvard is a conservative institution,
right?
Like,
yeah,
it is. I'm sorry.
I mean, there are liberals. There are a lot of liberals there.
There are a lot of liberals there, but it is.
They're like Ivy League liberals, which is it's essentially just for all intents and purposes conservative.
It's conservatives who don't want you to know they're conservative, right? They're the difference between a Harvard conservative and a American conservative is they are publicly embarrassed by their racism.
Mm-hmm. Well, and because they're just, I mean, it's that, I suppose. It could also be just that they are smart enough to, or clever enough, I suppose, in the sense that they know how to get ahead, that being openly racist can be detrimental to that. They've been taught by their fucking, their families that have been, deep in some racism for generations, that like, well, you can't say this stuff publicly because you got to maintain your privilege and your class, your status kind of thing.
Well, it's you ask a conservative about the problem with New York liberals, and you ask a liberal about the problem with New York liberals, and they both have problems with them, but for very different and very interesting reasons.
So now that this is just kind of thinking about this now, like Rufo was very much in the pocket, attached at the hip to DeSantis and his campaign. Rufo essentially wrote the Stop Woke Act, more or less. He wrote the playbook for how to talk about this stuff, right? And DeSantis
the college
followed
takeover bill there, and
it wasn't good enough it wasn't successful enough, and this is probably just mostly because DeSantis is unlikable and a fucking stupid asshole. He's got no charisma, but like I would imagine now that DeSantis is freed up, or suppose that role is no longer as necessary, he's probably going to gravitate to Trump now. Rufo.
Oh yeah, so. I mean, Trump already, in one of these articles, he already had been involved with Trump's stuff before, like, so he'll just end up back in that rotation, right?
Yeah, I mean, the I guess one possible I guess not benefit, but like good thing is that within that is that Trump has been kind of weird about like being anti-woke. There was one point he was actually saying that it doesn't even mean anything, which is like directly at odds with Rufo's thing.
Right.
But that might just be what Rufo does, is kind of lets him know, hey, don't say that, say the opposite of that, and you'll be all right. But anyway, this Rufo guy. So the reason that he reminds me of Stasis a bit, I think, is just how he's got it fucking figured out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like he knows exactly the pressure points, and he knows how to make it happen. And he's like, it's upsetting because look, if I was playing a video game, this guy would be somebody that I would have to deal with.
Right. There is something about how he speaks publicly that is over the top and comic booky, but he doesn't he's not doing it on like the national stage in a way where like he's getting up at a political rally or he's giving big stump speeches for politicians. Like he does interviews and stuff. He's very public online. But when you read it, how he talks is this just blatantly evil, fucked up shit. And I think because he's so open about it in a way that he doesn't use the bigoted words that just sort of like lulls people into a false sense of security.
Right.
And when we were talking about planning this episode, it was funny because we were complaining about how major news outlets kind of let him fly under the radar. Like New Republic isn't a big news outlet. Guardian is a little bigger. But like the New York Times covered him today. So like, good for them. You know what? Good for them.
And another thing is that, I guess one aspect of this episode that we might need to revisit is that Stasis isn't the only one that there's a real life correlator to. We've mentioned that I think before though, but there's a Philong that is just he's actually just an effective, actually intelligent version of Musk.
He's like, what if Musk was purple and moderately competent?
Yep. So it's there's a lot of. Sorry, I got distracted a bit by looking at X-Men pictures.
just looking at X-Men again.
I'll add this: Trump, he's a real Nimrod. Got him.
Bam.
And there's other things that, like I'd mentioned to Morgan as well, that like we could talk about. I don't know if there's a whole episode for it, but like, there's kind of archetypes, I suppose, within like what's her name? The scientist lady, I forget her name.
Gregor,
yeah, that's it. Gregor, who her husband was killed I believe by Mystique in House number 4 or whatever issue that was, where all the X-Men died. And she's, she was already kind of like involved with Orcus and whatnot, but like now she's very obviously motivated by this grief. And there are people who, attach themselves to bigotry and being, because of whatever perceived, something real that happened in their life. But like, and that stuff is activated a lot by these people. That's just one aspect of the propaganda campaigns is, preying on people's real valid emotions in some cases, triggering them and pointing them at the enemy they want them to have. Nonetheless. I gotta stop looking at X-Men pictures. So it's crazy he's so open about it, but the thing is, he's giving them the blueprint. He's giving conservatives the blueprint for how to do this. He's showing like, look, you don't have to be afraid to just say what you're doing and do it. Like, and here's here's the pressure points. Here's, in that way, he's kind of worse than Stasis, because I don't know if Stasis is like giving, open seminars on how to be an effective fascist.
I feel like he is, right? Like, I feel like given his position, right, that he is that sort of person, right? He's not going out and doing the groundwork, but he is having these sorts of conversations.
Yeah. Speaking of the sorts of conversations that he's been having, let's get to that, because shout out to Danimal the Bruce, who had sent me some stuff about this when he heard that we were talking about Rufo today.
Yeah.
Just good looking out, man. I don't know if he's in chat or not.
See him in chat today, but if he watches this or watches the replay, shout out to you. You rock.
So let me just pull this up here. Have any of you heard of the phrase, the acronym NETTR? NETTR.
I have not.
Okay. So this is a Guardian article from October 11th of last year that talks about NETTR and what that means, and you might start seeing it more often.
Oh boy.
Let's see if anybody knows it real quick before us get into it. No, NETTR.
It doesn't look like it.
All right. So what it stands for is no enemies to the right. And what that means is, as Christopher Rufo held a Twitter space back at this point in October last year, a conversation that he hosted and discussing conservatives cooperating with extremists to destroy the power of the left. So when you get into where he sits on the ideological spectrum, this actually did help me out a lot, because it does get kind of hard to not see all conservatives as just like fucking the far right fascists at this point. But I think there actually still are some that are, at least, even if they're, they want to be that, or they're cool with how they're actually uncomfortable with aligning themselves with open far right fascists, right?
Right.
But this is what Christopher Rufo's goal was with this conversation, was to say, hey, and of course he comes out and says that no, those people are actually immoral, they're politically wrong. He said that, like talking about Nazis and white nationalists and whatnot. But that doesn't matter whenever you're literally hosting a fucking Twitter space that essentially is allowing the conversation to happen that, no, we need to kind of just be okay with it. So,
right.
Yeah. Christopher Rufo, close ally of DeSantis, hosted a social media debate in which one participant argued that conservatives should cooperate with a hypothetical white nationalist dictator in order to destroy the power of the left. Rufo, a Manhattan Institute fellow, has been hugely influential in DeSantis' culture war policies, did not disagree with the participants' sentiments. Instead, he commended speakers for their thoughtful points and presenting the discussion as a model of engagement with the dissident right. Rufo is a high-profile conservative activist. Like, and knowing what we have already established about Rufo, he's a fucking smart guy. He's really smart.
He's very smart, which is why, like, when you're talking about the Harvard thing, right? Like, he knows.
He's not doing this thinking, no, well, I'm literally just having a conversation about this. We're not. He wants this conversation to go a certain way, is what he wants. He's a high-profile conservative activist who, in books, columns, media appearances, and a Substack newsletter, has encouraged conservatives to oppose wokeness. He's been credited with mobilizing conservatives against communities of color, first with a distorted version of critical race theory. And look, we talked about CRT. We haven't even gotten into the number 2 successful campaign that this motherfucker has been waging, but you've all seen it. By linking LGBTQ inclusive education practices to pedophilic grooming. So the groomer thing, that's Rufo too.
That's Rufo too.
What a piece of shit.
And that one is differently scummy because it's important to know when you're looking at like where actual grooming happens in America. It happens in churches. It happens in small communities where you're isolated and don't have access to outside information.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Michael? Welcome.
Yeah, Bob, this is exactly why we're like, this guy is, we're going to tie him to a comic book villain because that's exactly what he fucking is.
It's crazy. You know, it's like, it's in the same way that, like, you know, comic book villains are known for doing their, I'm going to reveal my entire plan and, you know, and stuff. And it's like become actually a joke and a trope because, like, you know,
who would
nowadays,
do that?
Right. Nowadays, villains will say, I'm not a comic book villain. I'm not going to tell you my whole thing or whatever. Ozymandias had a famous line about that in Watchmen. Well, now it's like, well, okay, apparently we were all wrong about that. We were giving people too much credit.
We're
Because
going to put it on Twitter.
Apparently you can just do that. And people are like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, and Galvatron, that is exactly what we were talking about before the show, is that, like, yeah, Rufo is a much bigger issue. We just don't know it, and we can't directly contain him as easier.
Anybody that, like, if Trump just, like, I don't know, had a fucking aneurysm or, you know, more likely, I guess, a massive coronary episode incident today and was no longer around tomorrow, right? Like, if like all of the leading candidates happen to just be on the same plane and, like, you know, the plane goes down or something like that, which FBI, CIA, Secret Service, I'm not going to do anything to anybody's plane, okay? But anyway, if that happened, we would still have a massive problem because Rufo exists.
Right. There will always be another Trump. You can always find another, well, maybe not a Trump because he's a whole special confluence of bullshit, but
yeah,
you can find another strongman fascist.
All hail Megatron.
All hail Megatron.
All right. So, and by the way, you were talking about, and this is talking about schools and churches and whatnot. You were talking about that. One place that have you guys ever seen the account on social media called End Wokeness?
Sadly,
it is very, very popular, and they are fascists, man. They are fucking white supremacist fascists. Whoever's running that account, like, it's just openly in a lot of cases, like, all but saying we're that, and that's the kind of. But then you've also got people who consider themselves centrists or even just like moderate conservatives who they're also very much against wokeness or whatever, and it's like that just goes to show how fucking you know, how broad that word is and everything that fits underneath it, right?
Well, and it's, you know, sort of goes back to what we're talking about with, you know, the efficacy of these terminologies and these thought terminating cliches is that it allows you to have that cognitive dissonance.
Yep. So Rufo has exercised particular influence on DeSantis. He reportedly consulted on the drafting of Stop Woke Act, which bans schools and workplace from teaching that anyone is inherently privileged due to race or sex, and was invited by DeSantis to witness the bill's signing. Later, DeSantis appointed Rufo to the board of trustees of Florida's New College in January. So New College was traditionally a liberal college, but DeSantis wanted to make a point with it. So he did, and it's now has become a conservative institution. A move that many say heralds DeSantis' view of the future of academia in Florida and the U.S. So with that in mind, thank God he lost, right? But like that plan is not just off the table now.
No.
So yeah, participating in the debate was Charles Haywood, a former shampoo magnate.
Oh my God.
Who the Guardian previously reported is a would-be warlord who founded a secretive men's-only fraternal society, the Society for American Civic Renewal. So Fight Club, Project Mayhem shit.
Oh my God. What an absolute dork, right? Like, not only did you fight you create your men-only secret society, you gave it a goddamn acronym.
It's not even a good one.
No, it's terrible.
Like, at least call it SAC. Like, find a way to make it SAC.
Or you could be the Society for Civic American Renewal, and then it's SCAR, right? That's at least like dorky, but kind of like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, make it cool.
Oh God, get the fuck out.
The debate concerned Haywood's promotion of a strategy he calls no enemies to the right, which urges people on the right to avoid any public criticism of others in their camp, including extremists. Early in the Rufo hosted discussion last Tuesday, it was in October, keep in mind, Haywood raised the hypothetical possibility early in the discussion. Let's say a real white nationalist arose who had real political power and therefore could be of assistance against the left. Responding to the hypothetical, Haywood said, I think that the answer is that you should cooperate with that person in order to destroy the power of the left. Later, Haywood responded to concerns about right-wing authoritarianism by saying, when we're talking about people like Franco or Pinochet or even Salazar, they did kill people. They killed people justly. They killed people unjustly. And that's just a historical fact. But they saved a lot more people than they killed.
Fuck you with a cactus.
Pinochet was military dictator of Chile from 1971 to 1990, and coming to power in a coup, he tortured, exiled, or killed tens of thousands of his regime's opponents. That's apparently an acceptable and even desirable outcome for some people there.
Because conservatives don't believe in democracy.
Franco was dictator of Spain from 36 to 75, and his regime killed 100 to 200,000 people during the so-called White Terror. Salazar was the head of Portugal's authoritarian one-party state from 32 to 68. His regime repressed domestic opposition and oversaw brutal colonial policies in Africa that permitted forced labor and other abuses. So,
slavery. Yeah.
Cool names you guys are dropping over there, man. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, great. Yeah, those people are fine, right? Like, oh my God.
He credits speakers with raising some provocative points on all sides, some thoughtful points on all sides, and told listeners, I think there is a room for engaging the dissident right and the establishment right. I think we need to have a bridge between the two and engage in thoughtful dialogue. Yeah, because when you're dealing with fucking fascists, like extremists, like who are literally like, yo, let's fucking kill anybody that doesn't agree with me, you're going to get some real thoughtful fucking dialogue.
Right. Those are, historically thoughtful people.
The Guardian emailed Rufo and DeSantis detailed requests for comment prior to publication, but they didn't want to, and that's another fashy thing. It's like they're to the point now where they don't even give a fuck if somebody wants, like, hey, can you clarify what you mean? But no, we don't care what you do. It doesn't matter.
Well, and you know what? Here's the truth, right? When they don't feel the need to comment, it's because that's basically just Rufo and them saying to the Guardian, you already know what we mean.
Right. Well, but then, so, maybe he decided that he needed to do some element of damage control. Rufo said in a statement after publication that to the Guardian, that he was against right-wing racialism and against an unrestricted policy of no enemies to the right.
But then if we can go back to this New Republic article that we have pulled up on my end.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the wrong article up. We can go back to this one. Oh, but he is involved with a eugenicist and a racialist. Huh. So he's lying. That's called
not what he said over
lying.
here. Yeah, I mean, it's probably like it might be one of those things where he doesn't consider this guy a racialist.
Sure,
right?
except
Like
that he's like a noted racialist.
Well, I mean, but like the same way that chuds will argue all day long about what is actually racism kind of
Right.
thing. Like,
Yeah, their definition of racism is, did you shoot a black guy
yeah,
today?
Were you calling him the N-word when you did it? Because
when
if
you
not,
did it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but so you did call him, but did you wear a KKK hood? No,
Right.
Didn't think so. So that's not
No,
racism.
That's not real race. Yeah, like.
And then during the debate, Rufo also criticized the U.S. white nationalist Richard Spencer, which is easy to do whenever he's just, by and large, he's not an entity that has any relevance anymore.
And also, like, because he's arguably America's most well-known open fascist.
Yeah.
It is easy to go, I don't support that guy. But, like, okay, so you're not as much of a Nazi as America's most famous Nazi. That's a low bar. I'm not impressed by that. I am less fascist than fucking Richard Spencer. Okay, congratulations.
Here's the unspoken thing I think about modern day fascism is that they will never, even once they attain power, I don't believe they will ever acknowledge that they are fascists.
No.
The only fascists that will or ever have, and they're gone now, are the original fascists. They call themselves fascists. They named themselves that. The Italian fascists and whatnot. And like, but now it's like, no, they're never going to just go, ha, we got you. We were fascists all along. They will deny it, even as they're doing, they're burning fucking books in the streets and having people fucking executed in the back of, news stations and stuff like that. They will not fucking.
Well, you look at like, and this creates some issues for them. Like, in Australia last year, there was a turf rally, and the neo-Nazi, the Australian neo-Nazi showed up in support, and the turfs had to like they couldn't get their story straight as to like, oh, but they're really here in support of trans people, despite like flying flags to the contrary and stuff, and holding placards and stuff. So like, it fucks up their whole thing to this the pretense when the actual like out Nazis come out.
Yep. Yeah, the ones. I do need to add on that. Fucking what's his name? He loves children. Talk about children's genitals. What's his name?
Oh, noted child genital enthusiast Matt Walsh.
Right. Yeah, he has actually called himself. He's a self-described fascist. So that's one. But I think people probably think he was joking.
Yeah, he plays I'm just being ironic, or that's just a joke because I keep getting called fascist by the left.
Yeah. And of course they get away with this by and large because a lot of people don't know what fascism is and isn't.
No.
It's been so many people I've seen that are like, they just think it means using violence politically. That they think that's what fascism is. And it's like, what? And that's how they've managed to convince people that Antifa are fascists, right? Because they're like, well, the only ones I saw hitting anybody were Antifa, so who's real fascists?
Must be the real fascists, yeah. It is a failure on the part of our education system systemically, top to bottom, and the reason that is that if you were to teach the history of fascism and fascist thought, a foundational plank of that philosophy were American Jim Crow laws and American eugenics studies that was imported into Europe from the United States.
Yep.
And people don't want to talk about that because it's ugly and because we did fight the fascists. But that's because of a whole bunch of other things.
Right. Like if we really truly started addressing systemic the history of systemic racism and how it affects things and how how it began and all that stuff, like it's kind of like what the statues issue is symbolic of, and why they're so against that, because if we really started addressing those things, we would eventually kind of defeat fascism.
Right.
Like, and they know that. Because
they do,
so they can't let us they cannot, the reason that they're like, oh, they hate America, they want everybody to feel guilty, and even though nobody's actually trying to make anyone feel guilty,
no one does that.
I mean, look, you'll probably find people on Twitter or something that are being assholes about it, whatever.
You will nitpick, right? You can always nitpick, but you are not going to find a political body with any reasonable amount of power.
You're not going to find any teachers in class that are like, okay, kids, so today I want you to feel really bad if you're white. I want you to apologize to the black kid next to you. That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. That's a myth.
Not what it's about. It's just an education. It's just, acknowledging that things in the past have happened the same way that history, is always taught.
Right.
But they're so fucking adamant and aggressively against that because of this, because that is the demise of any kind of neo-fascist movement. It would not say fascism would be defeated forever, but it would essentially, it's
another roadblock they'd have to work around, right? And that's why they target education and education institutions so heavily, is because they want to perpetuate the culture war to keep conversations off of those facts, right? They want it even more rare that this comes up, which is why you have fucking schools in fucking Wisconsin that teach the states' rights theory of civil war and that whole bullshit. And they're in fucking Wisconsin, a northern state, because we got to get our shows filling to fucking own people.
I know. Yeah, it's just.
I know.
As Bo of the Fifth Column once said, something to the effect of, "Statues are not history; it's mythology." Yeah,
Bingo!
I mean, aside from the fact that the statues that were typically being discussed were not, they're not historical, landmarks in the sense that they were made then. They're not pieces of history from the moment that history happened. They're pieces of propaganda that were established for the purpose of letting black people know that, hey, we got you. Remember when we owned you? Yeah. Apologize to Reggie for being white, then go pee in the litter box.
I wish I would have grabbed it for this, but it just is a complete non sequitur. But in one of these anti-trans bills in one state, they carve out a section to threaten to send animal control after furries. And it's just why are you people so weird? Why?
Their brains are cartoons, man. I swear to God. They're just this weird addled cartoon of conspiracy and fucking bullshit just bouncing around in their skulls. So anyway, Heidi Byrick, an extremism expert who co-founded the Global Project on Hate and Extremism, called this discussion that Rufo had and its framing a disaster. By engaging true extremists, white supremacists, and authoritarians, Haywood's vision of no enemies to the right will sanction and empower those movements, which I think most people with any sense can tell is the effect of that kind of thing.
And I've been able to tell for years now. Do
you think Rufo doesn't understand the concept of fucking platforming? Of course he does.
Right, of course he does.
Probably better than we do, honestly.
Well, I would imagine.
She also wrote Conservative Cowardice on White Supremacy, and this is the truest shit we're going to say today. Conservative cowardice on white supremacy is the road to losing a democracy, and possibly much worse in terms of hate-driven political violence and autocracy. And to that end, I would like to once again shout out Danimal, who I don't know if he still self-identifies as conservative or not. I know that at one point he was, and kind of more on that side than left or anything, and he still has his criticisms. We've talked about him about the left and certain things, but generally he draws the line here, and he recognizes fascism when it's fascism, and he recognizes that this cowardice and in some cases not even cowardice, knowingly and with a smile, being like, oh, I don't, nudge. We're just hearing them out,
Well, and I think that when you're talking about everyday conservatives who buy into what conservatives, this independent, free from government, personal liberty conservatives, right? I think this is why the don't punch right thing is such an important propaganda tool, because it prevents those conservatives from knowing who their elected representatives and their staff are in bed with, right? That if they're not criticizing racists, if they're not talking about racism, then those people are less likely to know all that's going on, who they're in bed with, who they're okay with, who those people are inspired by. And I think that is something that when your everyday conservative finds out, I mean, not all of them will have that come to Jesus moment, but some of them will, or some of them will stop voting Republican because it's just like, I'm now politically homeless because like I don't like Democrats, and fair enough. But also like my party is no longer my party. What the fuck do I do?
Right. Yeah. So back to let's see. Okay, here. Just to finish this out, because there's a couple of good statements from some anti-extremist watchdogs here.
Sure.
Hannah Gaius, a senior research analyst at the Southern Poverty Law Center's Intelligence Project, said there's sizable segments of the right that want the best of both worlds, namely the energy and the vigor of the reactionary far right, but without any of the baggage. And that's just, you can see that.
Right.
You know, and like I said when we started talking about this, like this actually did help me kind of reframe there is a spectrum of conservative, I believe. And of course, you know, when we talk about this, it's not like I'm saying that some of them are actually okay or whatever. It's like, if you are a coward to the reactionary movement and side of your movement, or if you were just, you know, quietly in cool with it, you're a piece of shit too. But I mean, you know,
there are degrees of awfulness.
Honestly, I don't know which one of those is worse. I can't make a moral judgment on that. It's too difficult. Fair. Who's worse? I don't know. The open one or the one that's just, they're both fucking huge pieces of shit.
But I think we do have some conservative outlets that are actually starting to push back a little bit. And I'm going to pop up some and refresh these. And so this is Reason Magazine. It's a libertarian think tank. I think it is, if not funded, but like definitely has had Coke money before. And they have two pretty in-depth articles on how Chris Rufo is a scumbag. Here is basically when taking over the new college in Florida. He was not renewing contracts and firing professors for going after their left-wing views, but it might be a little bit illegal. And his attempt to remove the accepting environment and a more liberal environment in creating this conservative theocratic school, he might be breaking some laws. And now this is, unfortunately, our court system is a mess.
Right.
So who knows if and when this can be sorted out. But it is certainly an interesting read, and I liked this one a lot. Because I think if you want to be a centrist, right? If you genuinely believe in this, like the right answer is somewhere in the middle, right? He is everything he claims to hate, but flippy floppied. You know, he's talking about, you know, here we go. Chris Rufo wants you to be afraid. A sinister woke ideology promoted by a shadowy cabal is infiltrating America's treasured institutions. Blah, 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 blah. And it talks about his talent as a marketing guy, right? Tying all these things together as this, like taking a relegated liberal theory or radical law theory into this big moral panic that
is now just like a boogeyman. It's around.
Is now just a boogeyman, and he is involved with all these people and pushing these moral panics, and he's sort of become this thing he's claimed to fight. And it goes on and on and on about that. So,
well, I mean, that kind of, you know, two things that popped up just now in my mind is one that, for one thing, the woke ideology promoted by a shadowy cabal. How does that not just fit right in with what extremists on the right think?
Right.
Like, even if he doesn't think that way himself, he's providing a template that is filled in with the far right. You know, that's why the woke thing works for them as well as it does for the less extreme conservatives, because they can just go, oh, shadowy, you know, it's like somebody doing some sinister thing and we don't know who it is, but they're doing it, and you know, we know who it is. They don't, you know, they won't admit it, but we know, kind of thing.
Right.
And then also, it's just like how chuds have become the thing that they were railing against.
Right.
You know, that like maybe existed on some level. There was definitely some cringe, you know, YouTubers and I definitely remember seeing some what you call it? What's the name of that website? The one that liberals and leftists used to be on a lot.
Tumblr.
I saw some fucking cringe Tumblrs back in the day of like, you know,
there's cringe all over social media. It turns out when you have an infinite number of assholes, you're going to infinitely stupid things.
And if you cultivate them and look for certain things, yeah, you're going to find some shit.
You're going to find someone.
But you know, but that doesn't mean that it was the most prevalent thing. It really wasn't at all. And
no, yeah, but you're able to blow it up and.
But now look what does exist now is a network of fucking far right and you know, conservative, fascist, even leaning you know, YouTubers who are pushing an agenda about their politics, and they're lying about what this media is really about, and they're, you know, the same exact shit that they accused and still do accuse of.
I think to bring it back around, there's a reason I pulled up this tab.
Sure.
To bring it back to the Discovery Institute, because when you have someone who is just so actively a bald-faced propagandist and liar, you go, okay, so what does he really believe, right? What is the core of his beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look where he got his start, this is what he believes in. This is my hypothesis, that he believes in some version of Christian dominionism and has pushed all of these things towards that sort of goal. And you see that in his execution as a important person at New College, that he has executed on those goals of removing education from schools, which is what Discovery Institute is all about. That is their bread and butter. They don't want schools to teach things. They want schools to teach not things. And that's exactly what he wants to do at this school he's in charge of now.
Mm-hmm.
I got to mute for a second. I got to cough.
Sure. Yeah. So whenever Morgan and I were talking about this the other day, I'm going to pull up my Discord here, or chat, not to show, but to reference.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of just looking through a few things about Rufo, and it, I don't know, something hit me in a way I hadn't really considered before, but like, oh, actually, I wanted to show this too.
Oh, sure.
So it's just that Wolverine image. But I'll wait. I'll save it. All
right.
When he's like, I'm older than what is it? I'm older than some state.
Wyoming.
But Wyoming, yeah.
I just showed my spouse that earlier today.
Okay, so Rufo got his start, by the way, like kind of doing directing an America Lost, which is a 2019 documentary, or is not his start, but his views on race and poverty became more conservative at this point. He co-produced a PBS documentary from 2016 through 2019. His investigation into poverty in cities that had declined dramatically following periods of prosperity, so Youngstown, Ohio, Memphis, Tennessee, and Stockton, California, left him with the view that poverty stemmed from social, familial, and even psychological dynamics, which is just kind of crazy. And maybe he does really believe this, but I don't know how. I mean, you're working with just eugenicists. Like,
right.
I kind of feel like that's bullshit that he thinks
Right.
it's from social, familial, and psychological.
Yeah, if you are actively working with eugenicists, I don't believe you. I presume you're lying. Yeah, it is very reductive.
So he where is it? Rufo wrote that 4 groups had successfully framed the debate on homelessness and diverted funding to their projects. These groups were, as far as he's concerned, socialist intellectuals, compassion brigades, the homeless industrial complex, and addiction evangelists.
You know what's interesting about that? Like, he's used that ex-industrial complex language before, or after this rather, with the gender industrial complex is a thing he has made claims about.
Where the fuck is the money circulating in that complex?
Right. I would like to know. I know what my healthcare bills are, and I think he's lying.
I mean, are there intellectuals who are socialists? Sure. There's also plenty that aren't.
There's a lot that aren't. I would say most probably aren't.
Now, what is a compassion brigade? That is a thought-terminating cliche if I've ever fucking heard one.
Yeah.
Like, just brigading you with compassion. Like, oh man, all this compassion, you're trying to make me have that. Ugh. You know, and then
it comes back to the, when you talk about the alt-right, and they are anti-empathy.
Right. Yeah, and that speaks to addiction evangelists. Well, like, and I guess what he's saying there is that he doesn't believe in the idea that addiction is it's a fucking medical condition.
Yeah.
It's a disease. It's not a flaw of character.
Right.
It's not a flaw of genetics. I mean, I guess genetics play a part or whatever, but like, and so do environmental factors and stuff. But like, ultimately, it is a disease the same way as many other diseases that are also environmental and genetic.
Yeah, Sketchy's got it. It smells like bleeding heart liberal, right?
Right. That's what he's saying, is essentially that, and that let's see, with the Compassion Brigade calling for social justice using terms such as compassion, empathy, bias, inequality, root causes, and systemic racism. Like, these are bad words to him.
Root causes is a bad word to him, right? That kind of tells you everything you need to know. Like,
well, because the implication is with these people, and him in particular too, but like, it's just that these words don't mean what they're really saying.
Right.
It's like, no, they literally mean that, man. Like, that's
what
exactly
they mean,
what
right.
they fucking mean.
Well, I think it's a bit of projection, right? Because he doesn't use the words he means in a lot of ways, right? And he admits it, right? He uses CRT in not a way that he means or it means, but he's created this structure around it. So he just sort of presumes that everyone else is lying too, right? Like, when you're a liar and you surround yourselves by liars, you presume everyone is a liar.
Bingo. And then this is the thing that relates to like my usual kind of brand of content that as far as like dealing with anti-fandom, right? So there's always been kind of this gap in my understanding, as much as I've learned over 4 years, which is quite a bit. I remember whenever there was a time when I felt like I didn't understand why this was happening at all. I just knew that it wasn't, like, they were factually incorrect, that it was morally bad. You know what I mean? Those are the things that really got me on the track of starting. But I mean, even as early as 2020, up through that definitely 2020 was a educational year, seeing certain things play out in real time. But I still was like, I don't get why is this happening, kind of thing. And now I generally feel like I've got a pretty firm grasp on the reasons for anti-fandom being what it is, and the role it serves and everything like that. But I still had this little gap of like, how can people actually believe that everything is just an attack on them? Like, how do they get them in that space? There's got to be some kind of foundational belief that I'm missing, other than just the paranoia, I guess, whatever. Like, and I think this hits on it right here. So this is from a write-up about Rufo. So this summer, Rufo published a book outlining the worldview behind his crusade. The book, titled America's Cultural Revolution, argues that America has been quietly taken over by the ideological heirs of 1960s radicals, ideas formulated by Marxist revolutionaries and black nationalists, disguised in benign-sounding language like diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. In other words, wokeness. and have completed a long march through America's major institutions, starting from universities and emanating outward to government and corporate life. And this didn't say it there, but then you can extrapolate from there that, you know, he also and Chuds believe that it went from there into pop culture and,
right.
You know, well, that of course corporate life. So yeah, pop culture. And then, you know, there's ways that there are real elements that they can point to that they think proves their point, because there are DEI initiatives. There's you know, like I was just talking to my girlfriend the other day when she was doing some of her work and her job, and you know, I'm not gonna talk about what it is or whatever, but like there was something about DEI in the one of the things she was looking at, and it's like, oh my god, this is the only time our two things have ever overlapped.
Right, exactly.
Because what she does is not anything like that. But what would I do anyway? You know.
Well, I think that like you make someone feel smart when you're saying, I am giving you secret knowledge, right? Like this shadowy cabal that he's on about has created this terminology, DEI, but this is what it really means. So you know the secret truth. But that also, so it makes them feel smart, but it also isolates them, right? Because in the workplace, right, it like you encounter that acronym in probably some like annual or onboarding training package you have to like read through or watch a video that you really just want to be on your phone the whole time because they're really boring.
Right.
And you're like, well, it's kind of a nothing thing, but because I don't have the secret truth and you do, you know I'm wrong and I've been deceived. So it reinforces itself and isolates you from me, because to me, you sound like a crazy person. What you're upset about the boring training video I had to sit through at work and like check off a box on a quiz or something? Like, okay, that's a weird thing to like base your whole personality around.
Well, and then to speaking to like this point, because look, whenever you know this secret knowledge that's like been given to you and you feel burdened with it and you're isolated and like you know, you want to give it to other people to save them from the evil, you're just like Jesus.
You're evangelizing.
Yeah. And you know, that's I don't know if I doubt many of them are conscious of that correlation, but I'm sure that there's definitely some kind of like heroic monomyth type of aspect to it in their deep down in their subconscious.
Yeah, like that's such a big part of Christian mythology that I think it's sort of ingrained in all of us to some extent. I think it's, you know, and that may have even influenced us to do this goddamn podcast.
No, it absolutely influenced me at the beginning of like doing my channel. Like the reasons my reasons for doing it have definitely become more grounded and fucking, you know. But like, you know, I was definitely it would get me all like emotionally motivated to do this shit. It's kind of really that was necessary to get me to start it in the first place, to get past my anxieties and insecurities. Like, I know I must do this. I'm the one that must do this. You know, like,
but I think that the difference is that you could see that in yourself and analyze that in yourself. And we're literally talking about like how that cultural mythology is ingrained into us and how it subconsciously influenced our behaviors, and we can talk about that and admit that and accept that. And I don't think that those sorts of people can admit that can either A, that it happens at all, or B, that it's a bad thing, right?
And that takes it back to what I still believe is the, you know, and I think McLeod said earlier, the root cause, speaking of all of that, these chud brain, is lack of emotional intelligence. Because I can acknowledge that part of myself, and because I recognize that it's silly, then I can laugh at myself about it. That is like, that is a part of me that it definitely, you know, plays a role, because how can it not be of all the fucking content that I've always enjoyed, right? But then I can go beyond that and go, that's really kind of silly to think of myself that way.
Right.
And I can fucking laugh about it, because I'm not so fucking like fragile that laughing at myself is gonna fucking shatter me.
Right.
And these people can't be critical of themselves. They can't be critical of their actions. They you know, it feeds into like the cancel culture, because they don't want to be accountable for anything they say or do. You know,
and how many people have come into this community from CHUD communities, from reactionary communities. And the way that happened was not even necessarily anything that you said or any of the initiative guys said or that I said, but that they said the wrong thing in their community, and that was the end of their involvement because of how they were treated, right?
Yeah. Well, and, you know, that's one reason why I definitely have tried to, especially in the last couple of years of content, like try to encourage, you know, not being so immediately judgmental with somebody
Right.
making a mistake. And, you know, like, I mean, look, I made a mistake with that one guy that I invited on after he was in chat saying some what I thought was unintentionally transphobic shit. You know, and I think I was wrong with that. I think he was definitely trying to achieve the
Right.
result he got, and I won't fucking fall for that again. But I don't regret that I gave it a shot because
Right.
I don't think it's a good idea to just go, oh, that person said something that's actually transphobic, and just assume that they should know it is transphobic and that this
Right.
person has had the opportunity to learn these things the way that you might have, and go, oh, you fucking fascist, you transphobe, you're a bad person.
Right.
Like,
Well,
because that.
right. And I think this brings me into my rant.
Okay.
I think we're at a good time for me to rant.
Yeah, it's a good time.
All right. So the last time we had a show, because it's been a little while, someone was in chat, and I haven't seen them here tonight. I don't remember their name, and even if I remembered their name, I wouldn't like call them out because I'm not about that life. But they were engaging in some of the trans sports panic. And how I'm going to tie this into Chris Rufo and some criticisms I have of online leftists as well is when these things get you all agitated, right? When you see in the news, this is a story, right? Oh, the trans people are going to ruin the sports, right? What is the goal? That is the question I want people to ask themselves. What exactly are you getting out of this? Why are you engaging in this? And what is the result you want? And the next question I ask is, what is the plan? Because if you don't have the answer to those two questions, what you want out of this, I guess 3 questions. What you want out of this, what the people who told you about this want, and what is the plan to get there? You just open yourself to being manipulated completely, utterly, and totally. Because all you are is focused on talking about this thing. And in this person's case, it was trans athletes in college sports, which I'm a trans person, and the amount of thought I put into trans people in sports outside of these sorts of conversations, which I get dragged into because I am a trans person, is 0. My athletic ability is negative 1,000. I am not an athletic person, nor have I. Well, I was when I was younger, but I hurt my knee biking, and now that is the end of my athletic ability. I don't want to talk about trans people in sports. I don't really care about sports that much. But a lot of people who are bringing this up also never talked about women's collegiate swimming or chess, which is one of the things they've been like, oh, trans women in chess are going to be better than cis women in chess. It's like, what the fuck? It's chess. And things like in Texas, they made a lot of deal about a trans person won a wrestling meet. What they left out of that story is that it was a trans boy who was on HRT who was forced to compete in women's wrestling. Well, the trans boy on HRT is, has the more masculine and male physical characteristics. That's why it's HRT. That's what it does. But they get you all worked up. They manipulate the information. And if you're not asking what you get out of it, what they get out of it, and what the plan is, all you are doing is being a sucker. And to bring this to my criticisms of the online left, there are a lot of people who are right now, and for good reasons, not happy with President Biden. I am one of them. I think his handling of Israel is atrocious. I think his handling of the trans rights issue is bad, to put it very lightly. But there's a big move, and not a big movement, but a vocal movement that is like, don't vote for Joe Biden. And I go, okay, what's the plan then? Right? Okay, I get being mad at Biden. I get wanting to not vote for Biden. But tell me what the plan is. Sell me on a plan. And this just makes people either A, say nothing. They have nothing to say. They have no response at all. Or they get upset and call me immoral or anti-humanist or a conservative or a fascist. All of these things. And it's like, you can't even sell me on a plan. And it's the same sort of thing, right? With this, the Chris Rufo's panics is, okay, what, you want to go after CRT. Or in this case, now it's moved on to DEI and wokeness and so on and so forth. It's been SJWs before, but like, what's the end goal here? What does that look like? And how are you going to get there? And they don't have answers. And I think, as far as the stuff Chris Rufo and co are pushing, it's because the answer is how we get there is genocide, right? They want to, or apartheid, right? It could just be good old-fashioned apartheid, which is not any better. Case in point, look at Israel and Palestine. That, like, you have to realize that it is easy to play on your emotions, and when you're upset and you're afraid, and fuck, I'm afraid. The state house this week passed a law that would ban my health care and ban me from public access in public spaces. My governor will thankfully veto it if it makes it out of the state Senate. But like, yeah, like my own freedom is on the chopping block here. And yeah, I'm afraid, and I wish Biden would do more about it. But also, like, my governor is a Democrat. And with the maps being redrawn here, we might get better Democratic representation in our legislature. I might be able to vote for a Democrat that could win. And they are proposing the opposite of this. Well, okay, so I should support Democrats. How does not supporting Biden support the local Democrats who are doing a good job here? And they don't have an answer for that either. So it's important to take a holistic view of the political situation and also know what the plan is. If you don't want to vote for Biden, I fucking get it. But what's the plan? And if you don't have a plan, get one. If you get upset at someone asking for what the plan is, you need to look inward and not blame that person. You will go a long way. And that is the end of my rant. And yes, like Pink Bunny says, the biggest impact you can have as an individual is your local elections.
Right. But there's no reason to, shoot yourself in the foot by not acting in a larger context.
Right.
Like we need to make sure the field is as beneficial to our goals as possible, and not just, it's a trite old saying, but like it's true. Like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Of the good. And don't let your fear and your anger make you blind to being manipulated. Have a plan and know what your plan is and be able to talk about it, right? I can talk about what my plan is. I know why I'm, at time of recording, voting for Joe Biden. I can explain it, and you can disagree with it, and that's A-okay. But I can explain it to you, and you should be able to explain yours back to me, because that's how we have a dialogue.
Yeah. The most salient thing is just like you said, if you're going to fucking use genocide as your reason, then you need to be able to explain to me why you're accepting the almost certain genocide that would occur.
The return to an apartheid state more than we already have, because I actually genuinely believe that our immigration system has led to an apartheid state in the United States.
Hayes, I'm not familiar with how that works. I'd have to look into it to really answer that. I don't know.
Yeah, I have questions. Like, I am like interested in a positive way, but I don't know enough to know. I think ranked choice voting is a thing we should do more of and have more of.
Ranked choice for sure.
And also, vote in your local elections. Like, it is boring, it is not sexy, and no one in the media talks about it. But you have so much more influence.
If you're someone who says like, oh, you know, I've never seen voting have much impact on my life. Well, for one thing, you're
not paying attention.
You're not paying attention. You're probably just like a kind of privileged person in some way. And then also, have you ever tried?
Right.
By voting locally and to see.
Have you ever looked into who's running your school board? Have you ever looked who your city mayor is, or your city president is, your alderman, your county board representative? See what they're doing?
Look, you know, there's a couple of things that are, you know, big deals to me. And look, there's one aspect that has changed my life. Like, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for the fact that I decided I don't know how many years ago now, 8 years ago or something, to move from Texas, which refused the Medicaid expansion of Obamacare, like pretty much every conservative state did.
Right.
Conservative
Wisconsin doesn't have it.
I moved to Oregon, which did accept it, and despite being, you know, poor, having no job when I got here, you know, barely any money to live on, no car. I sold my car to move here, and because they, you know, once again, this is also because of local politics. Portland has a pretty awesome, you know, public transportation system, and it's pretty great. But I knew that, and I did a lot of research looking into where I would move to, for one thing. So I was like, gonna need public transport, and because of that, I was able to get into therapy, a consistent good therapy, because the shit that they're kind of just like the place I used to go, man, I don't even want to get into it in this stream, but like in Texas, the shit you have to do to even get the most bare bones help is it's honestly, there's a lack of like you're throwing your fucking dignity out the window in some cases, and they don't give it, like, they don't remember you from appointment to appointment kind of shit. They don't know who the fuck you are. They're just so swamped. And I moved to a state where, like, literally it didn't matter. I have health insurance. I did the application. I had it almost instantly. And I start going to therapy. You know, no, it's not the best fucking care that you can get, and, you know, if you have money or whatever, but that's because of, you know, for-profit healthcare.
Right.
But it was people who gave a shit. And this, you know, I shuffled around a couple of therapists at first because I didn't like them, and got to the third one, and Brittany, and she's fucking amazing. And she, like, helped me understand that trauma was essentially the thing that was like, yes, you know, I may have anxiety or depression or whatever, but like trauma is at the root of all this. And that, you know, I had come to believe that this is just how I'm going to be. I'm going to be, you know, anxious and fucking can't think straight, and like having mood swings and fucking depression and shit, and like unable to form close connections for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And then this, you know, she wasn't even a licensed therapist yet. She was still getting her fucking, her hours in or whatever. And she helped me understand that that's not the case, that you can rewrite the fucking pathways in your brain. And once I understood that, I was gone as far as like on the fucking track to being a whole person again. Right. Or maybe even for the first time, honestly.
Possible. Yeah. I know therapy has helped me a lot in realizing all the weird things, that in my life, right? Like, in how trauma plays out. Like, it was just earlier this year that I realized that, like, since I moved in with my spouse, this is the longest amount of time I have, like, lived in one place and not had my life tossed upside down. And that's like why I'm so space conscious and why I'm always trying to downsize my stuff.
And
it's like, oh wow, that's just like, you don't even think about how that happens. It's like, holy shit.
Like, not to get too real on y'all, but like, I guarantee you I would be dead by now, as by my own hand, had I not made the choice to come here. I just guarantee it. Like, there's no way that I could have sustained the life that I had with the, you know, the conditions of mental health that I had. And so that is one reason that as soon as I had my shit together and was like, okay, I'm now got a stable place to live and I'm doing all right. Oh, now I want to start like talking about this shit to people. I want to talk about helping people fucking make choices that can, get around this shitty system that might give them a chance at bettering their lives.
Right.
And then not only that, but also cannabis, man. Like, I was on probation for possession of marijuana in Texas for a couple of years. It was, misdemeanor possession or whatever, but it still sucked. And,
right.
And that was because I got caught with like the tiniest bit of weed, man, just so little. And it was not even good weed. It was crappy. Now here,
right.
If I got caught with weed, it's like there's no getting caught with weed. They don't care.
There's no getting caught, yeah.
As long as you don't have enough that it looks like you're trying to distribute it illegally or whatever, they don't care.
They don't care,
and,
yeah.
And now since I've been here, they have decriminalized all drugs. So, and this is probably the kind of shit that Rufo is talking about when he talks about addiction evangelists.
Right.
That like people, but no, man, this shit, there's results are in this stuff. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but the point is that local elections on a statewide level are responsible. Becoming familiar with your state's laws, why your state's laws are the way they are, who has voted for and against the things that could benefit you. And then, acting accordingly. I'm not saying you need to move states. Most people can't.
It's expensive. I've had friends who are like, "Hey, I can get you a job in XYZ state." It's like, that's great. I can't afford to move my family, right? Like that's expensive.
I mean, in a way, like it was because I was so unfortunate in an unfortunate situation that I was fortunate enough to move.
Yeah.
Because like essentially I had no more ties. Just had nothing. I had nothing. So I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, so there definitely has been improvement on the weed thing since I've been gone. Like from what I understand, you're not as likely to get the book thrown at you for possession if you have a little bit of weed or whatever. But I think it's still I think it's still a crime there.
Yeah, it's still a crime in Wisconsin. The enforcement really depends on where you are and who you are. It is not equal.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was a cannabis journalist for a few years, and that was the job I got when I got here. Was like writing about weed, and one of the things I did was covered various the process of legalization or decriminalization in various spots in the U.S. and the world sometimes. And so I remember writing an article about how judges in Texas were becoming more, picky about how they applied the laws. Like they didn't necessarily always even hold charges against someone if they had possession of them. They were throwing charges out sometimes. So, yeah. See, like, man, that's so common sense. Like the only explanation for why elections are the way they are here is because they know that it limits turnout.
It limits turnout, right? And there is a whole political party that, if you look at how they've behaved the last century or so, they're very much about not turnout.
I mean, so one thing that I figured out when I got here, Pink Bunny, is that sativas do not jive well with my anxiety. Which I used to wonder, because when it's not legal and you just have to buy it from some dude,
right?
You don't know what you're getting.
No.
Right? Like typically. And so I didn't really understand the difference between sativa and indica. And so like sometimes weed would I'd be relaxed, be like, oh, this is great. I feel good. Sometimes I would fucking have a panic attack. And I didn't understand why that was. Well, turns out sativas are very much, they trigger, some of the same chemicals that trauma can trigger and whatnot. And yeah, so don't do those. So I think sour diesel, I'm pretty sure is sativa, right? Anyway, I don't have a favorite strain. Honestly, I don't even really smoke anymore. The only cannabis that I imbibe is like every once in a while, not even every day, every few days, maybe a couple of puffs off of my little, it's half CBD, half THC vape pen. It is the least amount. And it's kind of ironic considering how much weed I used to smoke in Texas.
Right.
But yeah.
Now that's sort of the thing, right? Is now that like, what's good for you and what works for you, like you do less of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, now that I'm not, because it was like I was always driven to smoke more because like I don't know when I'm gonna get it again. I need to get it out. And now it's just
you're chasing
like,
it. Now it's just available, and you're like, okay, fine, I can get it wherever.
So easy to get. Anyways, and also because of the mental health thing, because I've developed skills and to deal with my anxiety that isn't outside substances and stuff. So like I don't need it as much the way that I used to rely on it.
Right. It's the
Anyways.
difference between. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I think we are now in full FAP. Just
yeah,
rambling.
we're post fapping, which I think is a good term that we should keep in mind.
Yep.
And actually, you know, that Vosh video that we were looking at, I think really kind of applies to what your rant.
Yeah, it really like this rant has been cooking for a while.
So, yeah, I found a couple of videos just today that I was really kind of like, man, these are exactly what I needed to hear somebody smart talking about right now. One of them was from Westside Tyler. I'll grab the link to that and link it in chat. But the other one was this Vosh one, and probably won't listen to the whole thing, but it's like
Also,
8
if you
minutes.
don't follow Westside Tyler, you really should. That guy's great.
He's coming up, man. Like whenever we had him on, like when I first encountered him, he had like 600 subs. Then like a week later, we had him on our show. He was, I think, crossing 2,000. And then now he's got almost 6,000. So he's almost caught up with me. Like that dude's
he's going doing places. All right. He's flying. Yeah.
Doing all right. So here's a Vosh video that literally addresses that and the fact that he, you know, he's been, apparently he's had a falling out with TJ Kirk and Paul Zigo and stuff. And look, I don't blame him because those guys are being real fucking dipshits lately.
Yeah.
Yes, he used to be a Marine, I believe. Yeah.
Allergic to pragmatic, effective behavior. I literally saw a tweet just the other day with like 50K likes that was like, the ceasefire now crowd is failing the same lesson that the defund the police crowd failed. And I thought like, oh, okay, are we going to say we need like to lower our standards? Because I don't think like ceasefire now is that bad of a goal to argue for. And then it continued, we need to stop kowtowing to the establishment and bending over backwards. We need to stop watering down the message. The real message should be destroy Israel now. 50K likes or something. Like yeah, go out there and protest, destroy Israel, or like end Israel or whatever. And you see, yeah, incredibly effective political messaging that's going to get you far. 50K likes, most of which I assume are from teenagers and people who couldn't order a pizza over the phone to save their life. So I don't know. I do hate it here, you know. I do hate it here. I think that in terms of like trying to get good people elected or trying to stop bad people from getting elected, the only people that are really worth your time are liberals. You can move like the left, the young left vote, and I'm not saying leftists don't vote at all or don't participate at all, but they need to get dragged along by the actual power group, and that's liberals. When it comes to like ideological activism, the left is a little bit more useful, but when it comes to anything even remotely tied to pragmatic, action. As someone who's an organizer in the DSA, I've honestly been debating whether or not to jump ship, as it seems to be going the way of the SDS. Yeah, Soaked on Left has made the argument that like if enough Vauchites join the DSA, it can be shifted over. But I genuinely wonder whether or not it's worth the effort, or if it'd be better to just let the DSA float off into irrelevance and wait and just like purely work with liberals. Because the DSA are worse than liberal. Like most leftist groups are worse than liberals ideologically. Because on the stuff that actually like on which there are fulcrum issues in the United States, most of them orient around like progressive issues or basic economic liberal, like, welfare shit. And liberals tend to be on the same side as the left on that. The only difference is that the left is less effective. Like, what answers are you going to get out of a DSA conference in terms of what's politically viable that you wouldn't get by talking to your average, like, Midwestern Democrat, In most cases, not much. The DSA can offer you maybe more in terms of like analysis or theory or whatever. But what does that mean when it comes to like actually going out there and doing or changing anything? In a lot of cases, nothing. And they're bad at protesting too, because their messaging is awful, no discipline or control. A lot of them are it's just worthless org, I know.
He is talking about the lack of effective, really much of anything other than making YouTube content in some cases. Or talking about theory, I suppose, leftists, online left generally, but like, what he gets into it here in a minute. And as far as like, and this is what the point that really struck me was when he starts talking about the DSA nationally, because I'm a DSA member. I have a card carrying DSA member, have been for a few years. Only been to one meeting, but of course I joined like right when COVID was popping off. So I don't even know if there were any meetings for a long time. But yeah, it's he starts talking about how what do they achieve? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there are groups that they organize, but what are they organizing? what can they point to any tangible results that they've achieved? You know, you've had this this groundswell of popular support for at least social democracy in the last decade or so, within the last decade, and yet they haven't been able to capitalize on that, so to speak, pun intended, I suppose. Where's the results of that, right? Like it doesn't seem to materialize. You know what I mean? So like what he's saying is that when it comes to actually messaging and organizing, and then even ideologically, that liberals generally tend to be better at it, and that they're the ones that are gonna vote for Biden. Whereas like a lot of the people that call themselves the left online and stuff, they're saying not to.
Yeah, and I don't know, like when you're talking about the internet too, like it's so hard to tell how much of that is just like online idiots and bots, and like
Sure.
it's just it's so hard to know who is real and who's just a fucko.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I think that like
the problem is that no matter, even if most of them are fuckos, they're going to have an influence on other people that aren't just
Exactly.
fuckos and bots, and that's the problem.
Yeah, Maestro, that is what the DSA is.
Yeah.
Or Democratic Socialists of America. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like they've got I don't know. I used to get the DSA magazine, and I remember I stopped getting it. I told them to stop sending it to me because there was something that like I was like, really, man, this is what you're gonna fucking focus on right now. I wish I remember what it was, but it kind of turned me off.
Yeah, progressive churches are actually pretty good at organizing. I mean, unfortunately, so are conservative churches. So,
right. Yeah.
And I do find that like progressive churches have their own weird issues. But what do you do? Everyone's weird. So I don't, work with who works well with you, right?
I'm not going to sit here and I don't want to make my argument or support what Bosch is saying just on the premise of like, they're liberals are better or whatever. Like the way I look at all of this stuff, whether it's on the right or the left or whatever, is if someone is saying they're speaking very vocally, very impassionedly against something, do they have an alternative? Do they have something that like, because if not, you're just complaining.
Right. And what is your end goal? What is your plan?
That is the most privileged fucking thing you can possibly do, is just complain.
Right.
You're not offering any results or solutions or counter proposals or anything like that. You're just saying, well, I'm not voting for Biden because of blah, blah.
Right. You don't have an alternative. And I feel like when you're talking about Biden, right? Like, I feel like his big slouch in support really, it sort of initially happened with the rail union last year, and it sort of built back up after he got them a deal, sort of after he broke their strike.
Yeah.
Which was fine, I guess. But I get having an issue with that. But then with Israel is where it really took off, and how he's been treating them with kid gloves. But like that is several months ago. So you can't tell me that like, if people agitating to not vote for Biden have been doing that nonstop, they haven't stopped to make a plan. And all I can think of is, if you don't have a plan, then you're just okay with the alternative.
Right. And if you haven't accounted for the consequences of not keeping Biden in office, then you are someone who doesn't share the values that I do, and I don't care what you have to say.
I am no longer interested in what you have to say, because what you have is not a political ideology, but you're just a reactionary.
Yep. Not only this, Bob, of the old ways, that's absolutely true, but not only that, but they're also the same exact people that we need to appeal to and move on issues. And I know that, I knew he was coming. I knew McLeod was coming up. McLeod is someone that will speak, vehemently against liberals and stuff. And it's like, I get it, man. Like it's there can be frustrating that they are just like almost, but not quite. Right. It's very fucking frustrating.
Right.
But, nothing worth having is easy. I've been talking to, my kid about this lately because he hates homework. And it's like, it's like,
what
and I'm trying, of course, right. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to tell him. Is like,
actually,
Yeah, exactly. McLeod. He's. I mean, useless old sack. I think is maybe a little bit less
I think it
charitable than he deserves.
sells him short. I think he has done more than I expected.
Almost potentially useless in I mean, like something like that. But like I get the wanting to use language that expresses
Right.
yourself, but let's also be realistic as well. He has done a pretty not as good a job, but like, look, he has been pretty clear about like what the fuck Trump and MAGA is.
Right.
And
he, like, despite this, we all knew the Supreme Court was going to shit on his student loan forgiveness plan, and his Department of Education has still worked really hard on that, and it restarted the public workers loan forgiveness. So if you work in the public sector or you work in a field like medicine, by law, after so many years of that sort of work, the federal government is supposed to discharge your debt. You pay whatever your payment is, and then you're done. After a set number of years, doesn't matter because you work for the public good. Under the Trump administration, Secretary Voss put a stop to that, just froze it. So for 4 years, people who by law were entitled to having their debts forgiveness because they worked for the public good were forced to continue to pay. That restarted under Biden and has been expanded under Biden, right? So like some good has been done. He's the first president in who knows how many decades to go to the picket line and give his platform to union leaders. That's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. His Department of Justice has been more involved in anti-strike breaking stuff than has happened in the last several decades. Like there are some genuinely good things to be said about the Biden administration. And there's some genuinely bad things. And we can talk about that. But I am rambling.
I hate to keep bringing it back to Vosh, but Vosh said in 2020, before that election, that basically, and this is just the most salient thing you can say about it, I believe, it's just, I'd rather fight a somewhat ineffective liberal than a fucking fascist.
Right, than any fascist.
Because even if Trump is just a fucking old clown shoes fucking dipshit, that him on his own, like, what is he going to do? Really not, but he's in a position, and he is the exact type of person that if you just butter him up, he'll let you do whatever the fuck you want. And there are a lot of demons, fucking in the not literal sense, but man, almost as literal as I can possibly be when I use that word.
I mean, to bring it back to our episode, right? Literal comic book villains, right?
Mm-hmm.
Literal straight out of the panel comic book villains that he has in the past, and if given the chance, will continue to put into positions of power, often for long-term or lifetime appointments.
Reggie, I wish I'll. If you remind me in the Discord, I'll send you a link to this video, man. But I think because I've seen you get kind of worked up about this a couple times, not to call you out, but it's understandable. But
I mean,
you have to disconnect from the idea that the YouTubers are going to change anything, that they're going to do anything, like, because they're really not. I mean, the most they can do is propagate ideas, and if you expect a YouTuber to do any more than that, you're probably going to be disappointed. And I can tell you from personal experience, because as I talked about earlier briefly, the Rev Team thing, that was my naive, just idealistic thing of like, look, we may not all be, I was appealing to anarchists and soc dems and socialists and communists and shit. It's like, look, we may all want the same end result, but we all know that fascism is not the way to go. So let's all just push this way together. That should be something we can all agree on.
Right. It shouldn't be hard, but it is.
And I watched it fall apart because people want to bicker and they want to, get like, oh, you're not the right kind of leftist kind of thing. It's the way Christians are in some ways.
Right. It's very sectarian.
And it's just, it's unfortunate. Like it's really that's kind of the height of privilege in a way. It's like, oh, you actually think we have the ability to argue about the end result of what we want right now? You're fucking missing the point.
You can't figure out what knowing how, I mean, even when, back when Biden was running for president, that they didn't want Biden as president, that in 4 years, they still don't have like a cohesive, what the fuck the plan is, what the end goal is, and how to get there. They're not serious people.
Yeah, they're not concerned
preachers.
about the
And what do preachers want? Fucking tithes, right?
It reminds
Whether it's tithes in dollars or tithes in online clout, that's what they want.
It reminded me of a lot of the atheist skeptic YouTube thing, right? Where like, okay, so you are someone who just maybe a couple of years ago came to a big realization about the world, right?
Right.
Like whether it's capitalism or religion, you know, like a lot of us have come to these conclusions. Like for me, religion was about a decade or so or more ago where I was like, oh my God, this has had way too much influence. People believe in this shit. And it's like everywhere and it's really bad. And I was angry. And I fucking thought that, you know, and I had this idea that I just need to fucking talk about it all the time. I need to tell everybody that believes in it they're stupid. And, you know, they're the enemy and kind of shit like that. And it's like, it doesn't achieve anything except alienate you.
Yeah.
And it's not engaging with the world that is in a way that can have any pragmatic effect. You know, and
now how many of these atheists call themselves Christian directly or like secular Christian or
are just you know, anti-Islamic because they believe the propaganda about Islam.
Right.
Because they're apparently not very good skeptics.
No, they're you know, like the thing with the atheism question is congratulations, you found an evidence-based answer to one question. That doesn't mean you know shit. Sorry.
Right.
Like,
yeah, and that's, by the way, that's exactly what that West Side Tyler video is about that I linked in chat earlier.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in hearing someone talk about it more eloquently than me, then you should watch that video.
I think I've run out of eloquence for the night.
That's okay, because I've got actually this is the video I should have shown in the first place, because this is actually another clip. It's just a clip from Vosh, but it's when he was debating TJ Kirk and Paul's ego, and then TJ's like vestigial brother that kind of sometimes goes or something. He's just there. But like, man, this moment I specifically downloaded as like a 3+ hour stream, and I was like, I have to clip this moment. It's about 12 minutes. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but I think any moment of it is Vosh at peak Vosh and like. And not
in a
like
positive way.
In a positive way, and not in the way like he's using slurs or tactical inwords or anything.
Right.
Like that.
Yeah, Vosh is gonna get his own episode one of these days.
So yeah, check this out real quick.
What we have done is still worth fighting for and preserving.
I applauded Biden's NLRB ruling, but let's not overvoice the positivity here. There's still a gigantic gaping loophole that hasn't been addressed by the NLRB. I haven't heard much talk about it being addressed by the NLRB. I'm certain Biden has been mum on it, which is the fact that companies can still indefinitely refuse to agree to a contract. There's no like weight over their head to agree to a reasonable contract. There's no litigation process that a union can engage in order to do that. And so there's still a giant loophole for corporations to be able to just dig their heels in, which they will use. And it hasn't been addressed by Biden. And it probably won't be addressed by Biden. So
I mean, they can strike.
Yeah, well, they can strike, but we've seen that Biden is willing to step in and end those strikes too, right?
He ended one strike because it was right before the midterms, and then he quietly went behind the scenes and tried to get those workers he ended the strike for.
So he f***ed them and then gave them a reach around. Sweet.
Essentially,
at least they got a nut. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, yeah. Considering the fact that no other president, to my knowledge, has ever done that, at least not since, I don't know, like the Roosevelt days, I guess.
By the way, the contract that Biden forced on them was pretty paltry in comparison to what they were asking during the strike, by the way.
Yes, because it was not. Yes, I agree. It was not everything that they wanted. But in terms of like, if we're taking a look at like overall good or bad for unions, he has been better for unions than any president in our lifetime by far. The rail strike thing is unfortunate. I'm not defending it, though I do think that he's done more to amend for that than any other president would in his stead. and all the NLRB decisions, the general advocacy for striking, the fact that the NLRB is like more actively involving itself in defending the rights of striking workers, these things are huge. But again, like I feel like right now I'm arguing about like the particular arrangement of confectionaries on a cake when my opponent has served me a slice of shit. Like Donald Trump wouldn't do, you know, some of this stuff a little better and some of it a little worse. He would do none of it, and the stuff he would do would be anti-worker.
Aren't you kind of arguing that you would rather eat a turd that has a dollop of Cool Whip and some little icing rosettes on it than a raw turd? Isn't that kind of like the essence of your position here?
I mean, I'm getting forced to eat one of them is the thing. There can only be one of those. Like I don't have the choice to not do that, and I guess I would.
I mean, you do have the choice to not do it. You've just chosen not to do it.
No, I don't. There will be one president. One.
Right, but you don't have to actively grab one of the turds and eat it.
No,
you can.
No, I don't grab the president. The president's voted in by the country. There will be a turd in my mouth. Also,
Yeah,
I think the difference
definitely going to be a turd in your mouth.
I think the difference between the two turds is a lot more significant than what you painted out to be. We're talking about the most pro-union president in our lifetime versus Donald Trump.
It's chocolate dipped. It's chocolate.
No, I know.
So they're really using that analogy. It's just these are people that refuse to accept that they're going to have a turd in their mouth, and we all, you know, it's like grow up, man. Everybody's getting that turd.
Everyone's gonna eat shit someday.
We're all gonna have to eat that shit. You know, it's just like, is this a, you know, is it a I don't know. I'm taking that analogy too far.
Shit so it's at least sterile, or is it just a fresh raw shit straight from the ass after 3 weeks of Chipotle?
Because look, man, yes, I would rather have the one with the dollop of Cool Whip on it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's gonna go down just a little bit easier, and maybe not be quite so bad for me. I don't know.
Right.
It's not a perfect analogy, but this is where he goes off in a minute, though.
I entertain these analogies because I'm not exactly like really that much of a Biden fan, but in reality, if you can't see the significant difference between the two, it's because you're ignorant politically. There is a degree of, oh, well, aren't they all bourgeois parties anyway, that comes across as woke, when in reality, what you're doing is just waving your hands at 1,000 complexities that people whose job it is to pay attention to this would be able to immediately identify and care about. We're talking life or death differences. This whole shit versus shit with some frosting, reserve that for like the party era back during which Dems and Republicans were basically indistinguishable.
I mean, you invoked the shit with the frosting analogy. That wasn't mine.
You were the first one. No, I said a cake with confectionaries.
And you're served a piece of
shit. We need a replay.
I said cake with confectionaries.
Rearranging the confectionaries on a piece of shit.
No. The confectionaries were on a cake versus the shit. I think that Biden, when it comes to union rights, I think he's the cake.
I mean, I don't know if I'd go there. If the NLRB secures the right for a litigation process for unions to force these companies to come to the table and actually gives teeth to the union.
So a lot of people don't realize that when Vosh is twirling his mustache like that, he's actually revving up
movement again.
Well, they have been. It's better than anything that we've seen before in our life.
When a company can just cross its arms in front of its chest and go, nuh-uh. Labor unions cannot flourish in this country.
Well, that's when the strike happens. But again, this is still better than anything we've seen before.
That's not true. In my lifetime, we've seen better.
Which president in your lifetime has been better on unions?
In my lifetime, Jimmy Carter.
I strongly disagree.
We got a dissenter here, a fact checker. For $5, Parker says, fact check, Biden into the railroad strike after the 2022 midterms, not before.
Okay.
When's he on the strike?
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's true.
Not that that was a particularly that was a particularly strong excuse to ask an entire rail union, but you know.
Jimmy Carter destroyed the trucking union.
Wait, why can I not find this? Oh, late November. It looks like. Yeah, okay, that would have been after the midterms.
I don't really think in my lifetime matters much. When I was a kid, both of my parents were blue collar union laborers, and we lived like rich people.
If only they had the privilege of being pro union today, they could see a lot of hope.
They were vote blue no matter who, Democrat unionists their whole lives, voted the party line, campaigned, walked the line with other unions.
Based.
And you know what it got them? My parents were lucky to retire. They were lucky to retire.
So
when
you
they
understand how you.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, you know, they are effectively making points about like they're chipping away at his points, but they're not offering any kind of anything to fill in those cracks or to say, you know, it's just, you know, as Vosh goes on to talk about here in a minute, is basically that they're sitting on their hands and acting like they're better than everything.
I actually kind of think in this case they're making Vosh's point for him. So you're they're arguing that who's president doesn't matter. Well, very clearly it did. Because there's a name being left out of this conversation, and that is Ronald fucking Reagan.
Right. Yeah, it's not like Reagan had some magical powers that other presidents don't have, really. It's just that he did certain things that fucking dismantled unions.
Right.
You know, starting, I believe, with the airlines, right?
Yeah. Air traffic controllers.
That's what it was. Yeah.
So yeah, like, maybe who the president is does matter, and that you saw the decline of your parents' resources because who the president is matters.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right.
Or like making spurious correlations.
Sorry, Bob.
Right?
We're getting there.
Whether like because them voting for Democrats did not make the economy worse. Like,
Yes,
do you think that? No. Okay. Wait. I'm sorry. So which Republicans could they have voted for that would have made the economy better by their retirement date?
Which president destroyed Glass-Steagall again?
I'm asking which Republicans should have won. I specifically want to know if you think that they had a worse economic outlook. Because you are saying that their bad economic outcomes were a product of them voting Democrat, and I want to know. Okay, so I want to know which Republicans winning would have made the economy better.
I didn't say that. You're trying to force me into a conclusion I didn't make.
No, the situation forces that. It's like they can't fucking accept that this is a binary fucking choice, man. Like it is. It just is. Like it's not like gender. It is a binary.
It is right. Like you. I mean, yes, you can vote third party, but also it doesn't fucking matter. It is the same as doing nothing.
Yep.
I didn't say the Republicans would have made the economy better. I said the act of voting cyclically for nothing but Democrats, because they're the ones that show up to a labor rally now and again, oversaw the same jobs that my mom worked and retired on, and bought houses on. The people that work that same job at that same factory in my hometown can barely afford the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment.
This is happening everywhere right now.
Yes.
How is this the Democrats?
Because the Democrats have done nothing to shore it up.
Okay, so what would Republicans have done better?
I'm not saying they would have done it better. I'm saying that the people that are supposedly the best choice for me,
they are the best choice,
presided during their time that they had, which was substantial.
Yeah, it's not supposedly, they are. If a bad thing would have happened in both cases, you can't blame the better option for the bad thing that happened if it would have happened anyway. I mean, at that point, you might as well be blaming them for what?
I mean, the wind? It just like provided no pushback where there's not really much of a choice. Like
there isn't a choice.
On Israel, where's our choice?
You don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many issues where there is no choice whatsoever. And we're just supposed to accept that election cycle after election cycle. And if we try to change it,
I know I'm not saying don't accept it.
The moment we try to change it, it's like, no. You got to just go along with it.
I'm not saying don't
fucking possibly do.
I'm not saying you have to accept it. There are plenty of things you can do with regards to advocacy and political pressure. I'm saying no. Again, no. Please, again. This is political engagement, okay? There are plenty of things that you can do to change the duopoly and change what is politically acceptable.
Lay it out for me. Lay out the change. How do I change the duopoly?
Everything other than who you vote for on election day.
What is it?
Advocacy, pushing funding, arguing with media organizations.
I already do advocacy.
No, hold on. Go to local town hall meetings, write letters to your local Congress people, write letters to local people like mayors, town commissioners, even like local city planning boards. That can do a surprising amount of good. Hey, in the past decade or so, we've seen a recent rise in legitimately progressive politicians. Right now, yes, our government may be broadly pro-Israeli, but America is more pro-Palestine than ever before. And why? Did that just happen out of nowhere? Did that just happen out of the ether? No, it's because people worked, and they've been working for longer than any of us have been alive. There have been Palestinian advocates who for decades have had their cries for justice met with deaf ears.
Just before he continues, I want to do this drop real quick. For decades, and only now will people listen. And yesterday, just yesterday, John Oliver, a generally presentable media personality, presented a fully pro-Palestinian take to an audience of millions of people. You can do stuff. And you know what? The consequence of you doing good stuff is that people vote smarter in future primaries and you get better presidential candidates to pick from. Without changing the first past the post system or the way we currently do things on a structural level, it's still always going to be a lesser of two evils deal.
Don't you
but
think
that doesn't mean you don't do anything.
We could save those Palestinians a lot faster if all of those people who say, hey, I want a choice on Israel, were like, I don't know if I'm voting for a Democrat this year. Earn my vote.
Again, stop with the fairy time bullshit. If all of these people somehow magically coordinated, listen, over here in reality, if some of these people all magically coordinated, if some of these people all magically coordinated, and they all decided on a single wedge issue, if they all decided on a single wedge issue to shift their vote on one wedge issue to another candidate who would have to be developed and organized and funded and promoted entirely on this wedge issue, they would then have to have more people voting for them than the entire unified Republican Party. Ergo, what you're talking about has never happened, cannot happen. You are talking about fantasy bullshit. You're not happy with how tedious reality is. You are not brave for throwing up your arms in the air. You are not brave for throwing your arms up in the air, ignoring reality, and only saying you'll lift a finger off or lift your ass off the seat if some implausibly, impractical, historically unprecedented shit happens that no political analyst would ever say would happen. But you're like, only for this will I, politics king, get out of my seat and do shit. You're not special. And no, you are. You're special in a class sense. You're more privileged than the people liable to suffer. If this country goes under, I can leave. I'm rich. But there are millions of people in this country who not only don't have that privilege, but they work tirelessly to put the effort in where you think there's no point. Your day for work is not at the election booth. Your day for work is 4 years before.
A politician to have to earn the vote of a voter. That's not unprecedented. That's literally politics
whining
101.
that you're not being catered to. You have it better than 90% of the people on this planet.
We're not talking about me personally being catered to. We're talking about the huge block of people who oppose the genocide going on in the Gaza Strip and to be heard.
And they're doing they're doing work. And their lives will not get any easier if they just don't participate.
If those politicians have to spin on that issue to change on that issue in order to secure those votes.
You're just speaking for them. You're privileged. You're privileged and arrogant, and you're angry, and you're using them as a shield. You're using them as a shield.
So of course these people would have a huger incentive than ever to
You're
want to
hiding
win.
behind them. The math doesn't change. The math doesn't change for you or
That's
for
right.
me.
Democrats
for nobody.
Can't win unless people who are against the genocide still vote for them.
Want the world to get better, you do the work between the elections, and during the election you make the best choice, and then you get your ass back to work. You, like me, spend a lot of our time whining online. That's our jobs. But the difference between you and me is that I don't think I'm special for my abstemiousness from the process that other people have lived and died and bled for, trying to build a world comfortable enough that we could be dipshits in a computer chair. You can do the work. You have to do the work. You do not have a right to complain and pretend that you are smarter for
keeping your hands off the work.
Why are you
people who are bleeding and dying right now, and we want to vote for the party that's allowing it to happen?
The people who are bleeding and dying right now, the most likely people to bleed and die, the poorest people in this country, those people vote Democrat. The poorer you are in this country, the more likely you are to vote Democrat, because in spite of the fact that your average American, poor or rich, is a hard, a significant proportion of people understand if you are poor in this country, there is a difference between living under a Democrat and living under a Republican, and you are trampling over that and the work that other people have made, the sacrifices. Do you think that winning is the hard part of politics? Losing is.
Winning is not the hard part. Fucking holy shit. Michael, thanks for being here, man. Have a good night. Thanks for everything. And speaking of which, Michael is a Patreon member, and you can be one of those too. Michael's a paying member. You could do that, but you don't have to. There's also option to follow for free over there. I'm gonna put up I missed the weekly update that I started doing the week prior this week because of power issues and ice and snow and stuff. But
a lot of that going around.
The Monday update will be up tomorrow.
Woo!
Yeah.
Something good on Monday. It does exist.
Woo! Yeah. Got oh shit! Just in time for right at the wire.
Whoa!
Look, here's the thing.
It's the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. It's clobbering time.
Yeah. What up, man? How you doing, Mr. Grimm?
How's Yancey Street?
Right. I don't know if you saw this, by the way. This is at the beginning of the pre-stream today, but
everywhere I go, I see his face.
It's beautiful.
It's magnificent, right?
It's really glorious.
Yep.
Because I was muted when you were doing it, and I died. I'm glad I was muted because I just praise Bill.
Praise Bill. And yeah, in response to Vosh, though.
Okay, you the big bad booty daddy.
No, that's a good Vosh moment. Yeah, I know, man. Like honestly, like I remember when I started out, like Vosh, to be perfectly honest, without Vosh, I would not be doing YouTube either, because I started watching his stuff and like, I'd already been into, lefty content and stuff like that. But like a lot of it felt like they were talking past me. A lot of it felt like they were presuming that I understood certain things that I didn't yet. And then when I came across Vosh, it was like, he's just the guy who, of course, very quickly, very soon after that was when I learned that I'm on the autism spectrum and realized, oh, that's probably a big reason why, I latch on to how he speaks. Also because he's a fucking white, cis straight white dude, bro. Well, he's not straight, but cis dude, bro.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's problematic, and that problematic, stuff I was also problematic, still am to a degree, I'm sure. But like, yeah, without him being warts and all, who he was at the time, whenever I found him, who knows, but like, I was like, this guy, I get what he's saying. I've said before that I literally think that Vosh is like basically kind of how I would be if I didn't have the shitty parents that I was born to. Like if he's Beverly Hills guy born to parents that are still together for some reason. I don't even understand that shit. But yeah,
how does that work?
And his dad like does arguing online with chuds and stuff. It's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But he really doesn't even argue. He just trolls people. It's pretty funny.
Sure.
Anyway, yeah, with Vosh's, I've always held, well, not always. There's been times whenever I've been like, man, I don't know, I can't fucking support this guy at least anymore. I don't want to watch his content anymore for a while or whatever, because he was kind of on something or using certain language that I'm just, why? But
I think with him, and I know we were talking about this pre-stream a little bit. Well, really, shut the fuck up. That's
yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, he's an effects guy, I believe.
Oh, cool. Now I lost my train of thought. Thanks, Bob. It's Bob's fault. It's all your fault, Bob. With Vosh, we were talking before stream, and now my brain is dead. Shit. Oh well, move on. Okay.
Well, okay. So I mean, basically, I said years ago, I said that whenever somebody would say, I don't know, Vosh has got all these problems or whatever, I would say something like, I think that in 10 years, Vosh is going to be fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And maybe it's even sooner than that, because I just felt like the thing that was holding Vosh, and still does sometimes, is his youth. And, and I think that then also the arrogance that comes along with, and I think he still does a decent job sometimes of combating his own arrogance that
He's
almost
gotten better about it. Now I remember what it was.
Probably comes with the platform size to a degree. Like you kind of have to be mindful of that type of shit that when you get real big real fast and whatnot.
I think with him, I think the two things that like turn me off his content the fastest is like his use of the R slur.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big fucking fan of it. And like he'll drop it on the regular, and I'm like, if I'm gonna watch Vosh, I'm gonna go into it knowing that I'm gonna hear it. But like it's when he drops it several times, like over the course of a couple of minutes, like, okay, dude, I'm done. The other, and he's gotten better about this for sure, is it like getting into the leftist infighting over the course of like several weeks. Where like he digs in and someone else digs in, and then it's just like, leave me alone. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Like I just like I would like to learn something new or hear an interesting thought. I don't need to hear about how two people who talk for a living are beefing. I don't care.
Right. Yeah.
Who does that help?
Yeah. I mean, unless it's something like what we were just watching, where it's like, this is actually a conversation that fucking matters.
Right.
I don't give a shit. I do not care about,
and as far as I can tell, this is like a conversation and not like several weeks worth of snipe fest.
Well, I mean, they're definitely so. I mean, what does tend to happen is they'll then be mentioning each other here and there in videos and streams after that. But like, yeah, I mean, it at least is beef with a purpose to a degree. And then so this is crazy. I just happened upon this, looking this up about the Babylon 5 thing. So the Hyperion class heavy cruiser was designed by Mark Kaczynski, Ian Vosh's father, based on a napkin sketch by Ron Thornton. The small registry number visible on the side of the EAS Hyperion in Babylon 5 is IAK 21494, and is in fact the initials and date of birth of the animator Mark's eldest son, Vosh.
Huh. Wow, that's funny.
It's fucking crazy.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, he does. And I think I've noticed that even whenever something like that comes up, like with the J.K. Rowling, and then the ContraPoints kind of stop being cool after that, the ironic misogyny thing, is that in that moment, yeah, he'll be stubborn and dig his heels in and shit. But then, like, I haven't seen him doing that a lot anymore. You know what I mean? Like, it's
right.
Eventually, whether he's doing it and maybe he learns the lesson at that moment, but he does for optics sake. He doesn't want to seem like he gave in, or it just takes time and he realizes this was not worth it. It's like he has, in several instances that I would have to think about, seem to eventually get it.
Right. Like there are takes. I think McLeod brings up one that like I definitely disagree with him on, that like the woke scolding is making what the left lose. It's like I don't know that I agree, but also I can entertain what he is saying and not agree with him.
Also, does he say that still? Like
I know he used to. I don't know if he still does. I don't watch him that often.
He definitely. I honestly don't remember the last time he's really said woke scold. I mean, but at the same time, like really, it really.
Bob hits it on the head, except for Dane. You know what? I like Dane more than Vosh.
I'm not a leftist. Ask any leftist, they'll tell you.
Well, I mean, that's how you know you're a leftist, because all the other leftists say you're not leftists. Right. That's how you know you made it. That's how you know you're a real leftist, is the other leftists on the internet tell you you're not a leftist.
Yep. All right. Well, we've been going for a while. This is a damn good stream. I feel like we hit the points we meant to, and we fapped it. We fapped Orcus. We fapped well, not Stasis so much, but there's not a lot of lore for Stasis, so it's fine. We've definitely fapped Rufo. We fapped the shit out of him, and he doesn't even deserve it.
No.
No, he did.
We fapped him, and I hope he doesn't come.
Yeah. And By the way, speaking of Vosh, we did say whenever we were looking at that first clip before the stream, I said, you know what I realize is that we need to fat Vosh.
We gotta fat Vosh.
Because
I wonder
there
if
is...
we can get Vosh on the Vosh stream.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy.
I mean, shit, that definitely maybe boost the profile of it for sure.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, you know, it would be interesting because there's the angle of it of like I would want to approach it as objectively as possible,
right?
Without him like influencing the flow of the conversation, but that would also be a good element to potentially have too. So,
right, like it would be interesting to pick his brain on some of that stuff, but I do feel like we did tonight, where we have what I feel are legitimate criticisms of him.
Yeah,
and he may have his reasons to do them, and that is his decision, and clearly it's worked well for him, but I can still think he's wrong.
Yep. Thanks everybody for saying it was a great one. I believe so too. No, I haven't seen that. I'll look into it though, McLeod. But yeah, so we're gonna have Fat Vosh at some point. We'll probably do that before too long, because you can kind of expect that we're gonna be doing more current day.
Yeah, we're gonna current day you a whole bunch. We're gonna use fucking pronouns.
We're gonna use fucking but the thing is, you notice how we did that kind of in coordination with nerdy thing today,
right?
We're gonna be trying to do that as just every time as much as possible. There's so we just look for that. We're gonna try and package those things together so that I don't know. There's for one thing, the algorithm is more accepting of this show. Maybe
that would be nice. Yeah, share it to your friends.
Yep, and anybody that missed the very beginning of the stream, the pre-stream, you missed this little thing here. I'll show it to you before we get out of here. But
I'll eat your ass. I will. And that's why I want the globe to know. I will eat your ass first. I will eat your ass. Ah!
So that's Alex Jones as Galactus. I don't know why I did that. It just seemed like something to do when I was bored, when I should have been editing Wolverine content.
You should have been editing, but you did that instead. And you know what? The one problem I have with you doing that, besides not editing, which you should edit more, is that's an insult to Galactus. That's really mean about a planet-eating space monster.
The whole thing was, I was thinking was, I was like, if he wasn't such a piece of shit, his voice could be used for good purposes.
It could, yeah, he could be a great voice actor.
Imagine his voice with just like a cool effect on it, a little bit of an effect, and he could be Galactus or something like that. Just like a really fucking menacing villain, because he really is a menacing.
You know villain, what? He could go out today, end his radio show, take his money, and get a stage name and get a union license for the Actors Guild and go be a voice actor, and no one would know.
True. And we will be on Saturday next week, guys.
Yes.
And I will try and remind you that on Wednesday and Friday of this week, with Initiative Showcast, as well as the old Friday Live AF show.
Woo!
And if you haven't caught it yet, you should check out Friday's show. I reviewed 1/6 number 2, as well as talked with Empty Mitch, who was his first live stream. He was pretty cool.
Was it really? Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. I know that's a good point. I'd have to think about that shit.
Yeah, we'll have to.
I guess we could just do the lazy one and do the Babylon 5 connection, but like I've never even seen Babylon 5.
That's the problem, is I've never it is one of those shows that it was so hard to get access to, and that's just a time of my life where I had a finite amount of time. I still do.
And for me, it was that it looks really cheesy.
It looks really cheesy.
And I didn't want to watch it.
It's just one of those things that I've never had access to it. Or if I have had access to it, it's I don't have time to watch it, right? It's it's on this streaming service now. Great. Well,
sure.
Do I have time to watch a whole 5-episode TV or 5 season TV show? Oh, no, I don't. Great, cool. So I'll do something else then. We've been canceled.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Bob.
I'm
sorry.
You look right whenever we were becoming friends, and you Like, hey, I like these guys. Oh man,
we'll
ruined
miss
it.
you. We love you, but
Anyway.
not in that way.
So yeah. All right. On the way out here, we've got, and I'll put his link in the chat again as well. Intellectual Darkwave, who is responsible for the Forced Adversity jingle.
The
and
legendary Forced Adversity jingle.
It's pretty good. It's pretty damn. I mean, you hit it out of the park. Can't deny it. And basically, the only direction I gave him was like, I'd like something that's kind of just like a commercial jingle or something for it, where it's like, you know, singing Forced Adversity. And he's like, okay. Came back with that. First time, hit it out of the park.
First time, every time.
But yeah, so this is a song called, and a video actually called Cigars.
Oh no, Empty Mitch just got here. I'm so sorry.
We were just talking about you, Mitch.
We were just saying nice things about you too.
But yeah, this is Cigars by Intellectual Darkwave. It is about 4.5 minute video or something like that, you know. But it's good music, and it's good parody. So check it out. It's explicitly leftist parody on his channel. So he's got stuff about Jordan Peterson, about unions, about all kinds of stuff. But this one is about cigars, and we love you, and peace. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves and one another. You know, and FAP.
America's cigar industry, which is vibrant and impressive, could be on the brink of collapse. Why? Because of holdover regulations from the Obama administration. Until 2016, cigars were unregulated in this country and worked fine. But then the FDA suddenly declared that it had the power to regulate them somehow.
Again, you know, you could say, is an alcohol dangerous? Believe me, alcohol is far more dangerous than cigars. It's not even in the same universe. First of all, there's no such thing as addiction to cigars.
I don't know how many people have been around secondhand smoke all their lives. This is just, it's all lies. It's what the left does. Lies about our light bulbs, lies about global warming, and now lies about this. All for the express purpose of ending up controlling people's lives. That report that I talked about, we first revealed it March 22nd of 2001. Secondhand smoke is harmless.
I was at a bar with a Rocky Hotel. You told me that cigars are good for your health. Cancer is a lie that the government says, so they can confiscate your wealth. Cigars taste best when wrapped in free trade. But I confess that mine are Cuban made. I love cigars. I really, really do. You don't need to live forever if heaven waits for you. I love cigars. I really, really do. I don't care about tomorrow. Me and God are cool. I love cigars.
It's about as benign a habit as exists.
May Bill Gaines shine his heavenly light upon you and impregnate you with many happy days and joy fetuses. May your anuses be cleansed by the purifying light that exudes from Bill Gaines' eternal dragon phallus. Should you meet your mortal demise this day, go with comfort that you have satisfied the commands of the one true Bill, those being this: read comic books. Fuck the dumb shit. Be yourself. Love each other. Also, read more comics and grow your hair out all goddamn while. Amen.
Actual fandom is not going to stop.
Forced adversary.